The daughter that the sea dragon loves is the empress who received the blessing of the seas and the mistress of the great empire of Atlantis, Tarasa Neptunos Atlantis. The magician Caortan reports that their country will exist forever, and the first general claims that he will be with them until their last days. The empress asks if he is taking the oath as her henchman or as her lover. The magician kisses the woman's hand and says that he is like a servant and a loving person. The empress says that today she needs him more than ever and asks what her friend thinks about this. Doom states to the empress that he is as loyal to her as he is, and she replies that she knows this very well because they are the only ones who remain on her side. At this time, the main character thought that it would always be like this. However, she doesn't understand why these two are together. Suddenly, the empress overheard a conversation between the magician and the first general. Doom, screaming, tells the magician that he knows about his feelings for him, and then he tells him that he loves him. Dumyu claims that he loves him so much that his heart is ready to explode at any moment. Caortan says that he is well aware of this and then hugs the man. Seeing all this, the empress was very surprised because she did not understand how her concubine and her friend could love each other. The empress claims that Caortan said that he loves her, and she does not understand how he could commit such betrayal. And at that time I thought that she did not believe in it, and thought that she had misunderstood. Doom turns to Her Majesty and tells her to never forgive him, and she says she hoped it wasn't so, and in the end, they both betrayed her. The general says since she found out about all this, it's better this way because they can finish this sooner. The magician grabs the empress by the hand and says that he must show her something right now. The main character, surrounded by flails, asks if he wanted her to see this. And she doesn't understand how they can do this to her and how they dared lie to her. Atlantis claims that she trusted them and loved them so much. Caortan asks Her Majesty for forgiveness, and upon hearing this, the empress asks if this is all his answer. The magician explains that he just wanted to protect the man he loves. However, the main character claims that her lover and longtime friend betrayed her, and then she asks why it came to this. Suddenly, the empress realized that they had planned all this from the very beginning, and at that time she thought about what would make them regret it, and she will never forgive them both until life in this world goes out. She will curse them. After these words, Empress Atlantis was sealed. She led 1,000 years in chains of sadness and despair, and she understands that she will not forgive them for this, and will take revenge if she gets another chance. The main character understands that probably, at that moment, someone was able to hear her voice, and the seal that bound her began to crack. The Empress does not understand what the sounds are and thought that it was rain, and she also smelled blood, and then she realized that the seal was broken. The main character saw that the maid was wounded, and the man with the sword poured out to give the Duke's daughter. The Empress does not understand what is happening, and at that time, she thought that this is how her second life began, and the spell of Caortan was destroyed. And also, this chain no longer binds her, and she began to feel everything around her and returned to Atlantis again. The main character understands that she is just a child, and at that time she thought that this was just a dream. The maid holds a little girl in her arms and says that she must carry her to the imperial palace, and so Miss must be patient a little. Having heard this, the girl does not understand why she addressed her like that. At this time, the knight claims that it is time for her to surrender, and then puts a sword to her throat. And he also suggests that if she allows the girl to be taken alive, then he will leave her alive. However, the maid, screaming, reports that she is not going to give this child to him, and then asks if he knows who she is. The robber says that this girl's name is Nisi for Risian, and then again insists that she give him the daughter of the Duke of Risian. The man reports that the Duchess desperately pronounced her name before her death. The maid heard this, covered the girl's ear, and screamed at the robber to shut him up. The robber, screaming, says that he will send her to her mother, but the maid abruptly snatches the knife from him and wounds this robber. At this time, the main character thought that this girl was not just a servant, and these mercenaries are hunting her. The girl understands that if she had been in her previous body, she would have wiped them off the face of the earth, and her last memory from the life of Tarasa was a dream in which the Empress, who was abandoned, was betrayed by Caortan and Doom. The magician said that her corpse would never decompose, and therefore she is a pathetic and insignificant, useless empress. The main character remembers that she saw this terrible dream every night when she was chained for 1,000 years. and so she decided for herself that she would definitely survive and take revenge on everyone. The robber attacked the maid and screaming told her to give them the child. And at this time the little girl falls to the ground. And at that time I thought that she didn't care since she was reborn again and is in someone else's body. The little girl understands that the only thing she must do now is to help that maid and she must survive. The main character reflects on the fact that she does not want to die again. The girl concentrated and used her magic. And at that time she thought about what she had done. The drip attack helped deal with the robbers who fell to the ground. And at this time the girl thought that if they did not breathe, then they would not be able to attack. And then she smiles and talks about how they are little assholes. At this time, the surprised maid asks the place if she really saved her. The maid takes the girl in her arms and then hugs her and says that everyone said that she was special. And at this time, the girl thought that she didn't really save her because she understood that this was the only way she could stay alive. The maid says that everyone was very worried about her, and after her prediction, they became the target of many. Suddenly, the main character smelled the sea. The maid does not understand what happened and asks about it. When the maid turned around, she saw a big wave, and at that time she screamed that they had to run. The little girl begins to smile, and the maid asks her to stop being so happy. And at this time, the main character thought that the sea felt her aura, and for the first time in 1,000 years, she, of course, understands that it is so happy. The racer asks in surprise how this can be, and then thought that this could be the power of the little lady. And at that time, she thought about whether she could say that this girl was really hers. The main character understands that, to be more precise, it has come to feel the energy of Terasa, and the maid says that she wants this to be her power. And then he reports that, as was said, in the prediction she should be the princess of the dragons. The little girl heard this and doesn't understand what it means, and the maid says that she is probably tired and therefore suggests that she sleep a little. The surprised main character does not understand what this all means, and at this time she remembers that her father defended Adele and ordered her to take Nicephorus to the emperor. Ninus took her Malishka in her arms and said that she must definitely survive. At this time, the main character thought that all the memories of Nicephor flashed in her head, or someone killed her parents, and her mother barely got her out of there. The girl realizes that perhaps this is her reincarnation, because she doesn't complete her past life because of the seal. Does she understand that Terasa is she and Nicephor is the same? The little lady doesn't understand why she can't get used to this little body, and she understands that it's very cute, but she doesn't feel comfortable moving. The main character reflects on the fact that she is the great empress of Atlantis, and has become a small child the size of a seed. The lady understands that it is good that she is the youngest daughter of the Duke, and this is already a good start for her. While they were walking home, the girl saw the capital, which was very familiar to her. Hey, she understands that in a past life, this country was her empire, which she built the capital of Atlantis itself. At this time, the main character realized that this place was turning out to be the country of those bastards who betrayed her. The little lady realizes that she has turned from an empress into a duke's daughter. But when she looked at the walls and saw a lot of cobwebs on the windows, she didn't understand what kind of relationship she had with a noble family. But the only thing that calms her down is that the sea is nearby, and she will definitely take revenge on the dirty traitors Kaorton and Doom. A maid enters the room and asks if Miss is awake, and then she hugs the girl and says that it's probably unusual for her to be in an unfamiliar place. The maid tells her that she needs to eat, and if she tries hard, she will grow up healthy. Hearing this, the main character thought that she needed to grow up quickly, and in order to take revenge, she must find out what spell was cast on her. At this time, the girl thought that she already wanted to try the imperial food. The maid looked at the girl and said that her miss clenched her fists cutely and shook her head well to the sides. The maid says that if Mrs. Ninnis saw her, she would be so happy, and then she says that her older brothers will be back soon because she heard that the war with the Yorju pirates ended the day before yesterday. Suddenly, the main character thought that she did not understand how this could be, since she felt the aura of a sea dragon. After all, she understands that this is not Atlantis. When the little lady saw the man, she thought that he had hair like Kaorton, but when he came closer, she realized that it was not him, and she wondered who he was. The maid greeted His Majesty, and the man asks if this girl has a final offering, and then claims that she is the spitting image of her mother. His Majesty asks if she witnessed the last minutes of the life of the Rizians. The maid replies that she was only thinking about saving Miss, and she doesn't know what happened to her masters. The Emperor asks what she said, that they are hunting her because of the prediction, and at that time he thought that they were creatures. At this time, the little girl does not understand what happened, as she began to have difficulty breathing. His Majesty says that they will hold the funeral of the Duke and Duchess upon the return of their sons and on a suitable day for this, and he says that she can take part. Heard this, the maid thanked His Highness, and he says that perhaps this child can cure the madness of the young dragons, and after all, she is very important to them, and therefore the maid should take good care of her. I heard this. The main character does not understand what they are even talking about and what kind of offering it is. And she understands that she is not a person at all, but what kind of medicine this is. The girl knows that fortunately the Crown Prince has 3 options, and he should not include her in this list. The little lady knows that if the dragons show signs of madness, she needs to add sea urchin and seaweed to the water, then boil it and drink it. And she doesn't understand what the problem is and why they don't do it. And I wonder why they became attached to her. Nicephor looked at His Majesty and thought that he was very similar to Cartan, but their characters were completely different, and she waves her hands and wonders who he is. The Emperor approached the girl's crib and asked if she was interested in who he was. And at that time she looked at him and thought about what, of course, she was interested in. A man reveals that he is an old friend of Karzen's Rizayan, his father and her mother Nini's Rizayan, and he is a monk of the Kyortan Empire. The girl was surprised when she heard this, and then thought that she had found his bastard. And at that time I thought that he also named the empire after himself. The main character reflects on the fact that if he really wanted to gain power, he should have asked, since she would not have refused him this. And it turns out that this emperor is a descendant of Kyortan. The little lady remembers that the magician and Doom Tak loved each other, and she is interested in wanting to have a child from another woman. His Highness takes the girl in his arms, and at that time she thought that they were brothers, and she was in pain, and then she began to cry and scream. The man does not understand why she behaves this way and asks about it. However, the servant does not know what he should answer, and at this time, the girl thought why he couldn't help but understand this. After all, he doesn't know how to control his power at all. Kyortan reports that she is unlikely to be hungry or bored, and then asks if she can change her diaper. However, the little girl did not stop crying, and His Majesty thought that she was expressing her love for him in her own way. Hearing this, she thought that he was talking nonsense. The Emperor says that she is so cute and interesting, and he reacts to his every word as if he understands. The butler reports that she is just a child, and he does not understand how she can understand speech. His Highness asks in surprise how he dares to contradict him. At this time, the butler, crying out about what he has sinned, and therefore asks for forgiveness from His Highness. The man puts the girl in the crib and then says that he can't understand why he scares her too. And at this time, the girl made serious personal remarks, and the gentleman says that it turns out that she is not afraid of him. The main character does not understand who he is, so that she would be afraid of him, and then looked at him angrily. At this time, he smiled and said that he understood her, since she was clearly not shy at the sight of him. The Emperor says that he can do the same thing, and then plays with the girl. And at this time, she thought about what horror she had just seen. The man remembers that when her mother was pregnant, she told Agrio that if they suddenly leave their children too early, then he must protect them, so that they do not become an offering, and so that Nicephorus can remove the curse from the imperial family. His Highness, after washing his face, thought that this time he could not do anything, and the last days of his sister and the death of his friends, and he could not protect anyone. The Emperor asks the servant what is happening in the Palace of Sacrifices and what is happening to the child. The butler replies that they had a quiet night, and there were no other attacks. The servant asks if His Highness really thinks that little girl is a dragon princess, and then he says that if suddenly she does, but at this time the Emperor, screaming, orders him to shut up, and then asks if he apparently decided to die at his hands today. The Kyortan imperial family has been cursed for 1,000 years. They are tormented by hallucinations that provoke murder, and this is a terrifying pain that covers the whole body. All subsequent emperors were stricken with madness, and the imperial family began to make offerings. One of them was the Duchy of Rizaian. Risian's ancestor was the first and only dragon princess who could cure the emperor's madness. And before she died, she said the following, "And many centuries later, a new dragon princess will be born. And then the sins of the Khiortan imperial family will be forgiven." And this became a legend of the empire. Everyone was waiting for the new dragon princess, and as soon as a child was born into the Rizaian family, he was locked in the palace and sacrificed to stop the madness of the crown prince. But even after all this, the parents entrusted this child to the emperor. At this time, His Majesty ponders whether they can earn forgiveness for their sins. Then he thought that if she really turns out to be the dragon princess, then on the day the crown prince turns 19, he will go to the palace of offerings. Well, then all their sins will be forgiven. His Majesty remembers that the girl he held in his arms was simply cute, and her sweet, chubby cheeks, those indignant eyes and pouting lips are all her charm. The man remembers that children smiled when adults did this because he read about it in books, and at that time I thought that that book was written by a deceiver, and we must seize him. At this time the little girl began to scream, and at this time she thought about how he could abuse the power given to him. His Majesty asked the girl what he should do to make her smile, and then he says that she looks at him as if she wants something. The man says that if she smiles, he will decorate this room and add more servants. And at this time the girl thought that all this was not necessary and made a sad face. The prayer servant looked at the girl and said that she was asking her to smile. The main character remembered the words of the magician that if she does this, then the whole world will bow its head at her feet, and she reflects on the fact that they are like leeches and are very annoying. Then she says drinking. At this time, the gentleman asks what she just said, and the butler claims that she said dad, and the maid also confirms his words. And at this time, the girl does not understand when she said this. The servant says that she considers him her father, and at this time, the main character realizes that this is not so. His Majesty looked at the girl and thought that when she smiled like that, she became even more like her mother. And then he gives her a toy and says that when a child is born in Khiortan, he is given a turtle toy so that the baby will live a long life. At this time, the main character thought that he had locked her in the palace of offerings and wanted her to live long. The gentleman strokes the girl's head and asks her to take care of this toy. And then he says that only he can look her parents in the face without remorse. When His Majesty left the room, he had a very strong headache, and he thought that he had symptoms of madness. And also, at that time, he heard voices that he should kill, rip out their throats and crush everyone. After these voices, he washed his face, and the servants saw that not everything was all right with their master, and offered to take him to the palace. His Majesty claims that they are all servants, and he knows perfectly well that they are spies for Roxborough, and he understands this and brought them here on purpose, and they smile and don't even suspect anything. The maid turns to His Majesty and claims that this is a misunderstanding. But he argues that since they have verified that she is alive, they will probably try to send killers again. The gentleman claims that since he has bouts of madness, they are just suitable as an offering. Hearing this, the servants stick their fingers into each other and, screaming, say that he is the spy. However, he did not hear them and sent everyone to another world. Khiortan wipes his face and tells Ninis not to worry, because he will protect her to the end. At this time, the maid was playing with the girl and said that her miss was simply amazing, and she already understood the words and did not even cry, and therefore he knows that nothing else should have been expected from a member of the Rosian family. At this time, the girl thought that she did not want to see how she was trying to console her. The maid reports that she is more talented than her brothers. And then he says that they, of course, are unsurpassed individuals and were able to show their abilities at such a young age, and probably she is the only one. And her brothers will immediately understand this. The maid tells the girl that if she is tired, she will put her to bed. And at this time, the main character thought that she never had brothers. The maid put the girl in bed and then told her to sleep and close her eyes, and because she is the cutest girl in Khiortan. However, the little lady does not want to sleep and thinks that it is too early for her to go to bed, since she wants to learn about many things. The next morning, the young master touches the girl's cheeks and says that this little girl was really born completely fearless, and her brother claims that he stopped touching her because it would hurt her. But the young master objects and says that he knows very well how to treat children. At this time, the little lady thought that her room was very noisy, and she opened her eyes. And then she saw the guys and doesn't understand who they are. Nice 4 suggests that this is what Nathaniel is doing. Rician and Heberg Rician, her brothers who won the battle with the pirates and returned. And at that time, she thought that they really were alike. Hebert invites his brother to look at her, since she is looking so intently and apparently she is interested in them, and she probably feels their energy. Nathaniel says that she was born with great strength. Hearing this, the girl thought that he really felt the power of Terasa inside her. And then she starts pushing her little fists and thinks that he should tell him more about this. The brother with pink hair says that he thinks she wants to play with them, and also suggests that she wants to call them brothers. Hebert says that on the ship he read a book about children, and at this age they can already pronounce individual words. And at that time, the girl thought that this could not be. Nathaniel invites his sister to say the word brother, but when the girl doesn't answer, he says that it's too early. Hebert claims that from now on she begins to grow up quickly and will speak very soon, since she is also a carrier of the genes of the coral fairies. The coral fairy race is the strongest sea-fighting race. They never retreat and look death in the face from birth, have a strong fighting spirit, and do not know defeat. And at a young age, they reveal their abilities. Most coral fairies are incredibly beautiful, and people attack them to enslave them. When the main character heard this, she thought that she, of course, could have guessed, but she didn't understand whether those hired killers really attacked her mother because she was related to the coral fairy. The brother reports that once a member of this race reaches adulthood, he becomes incredibly strong. And in the first year of life, children experience very slow development. This applies to coral fairies. Haber suggests that she might be stronger than them, and even their mother. The younger brother says that he still cannot believe what happened to his mother, and he doesn't understand who dared to attack their parents. And he asks his brother about it because he thinks he's smart. Haber says he can't wrap his head around it, and he also knows that the Risians have a lot of enemies, and they can't be counted. And he understands that because of this prediction, someone is probably getting impatient. The brother asks if he is talking about the fact that she can turn out to be a dragon princess. Hearing this, the girl thinks that the dragon princess was talking about the emperor and Adele, and she understands that this prediction was about her. And Nathaniel says that he even learned it, but he doesn't understand what it says. The brother explains to him that this prophecy was seen by 5 priests from the Ramet sanctuary, and that's why he thinks it's true. At this time, Nicephorus does not understand what kind of dragon princess she is, and at this time her brother comes up to her and says that she, apparently, is also interested in this. Haber asks his brother if he really thinks that the little girl understands them, and he replies that they won't know. The elder brother says that the predictions about her were such that when the promised time comes, the crack will open. And after so much suffering, the purest strength will blossom. The daughter of the sea will bless the young dragon so that he can finally rest. Prosperity will come, which no one has ever dreamed of, and therefore they must pray, because they do not know where the edge of the blade will go, and they must ask for forgiveness and mercy, since the pain of repentance will still remain. A land of red soils where true reverence rests, send them back to where they came from, for that is their savior. The main character thought that the daughter of the sea was about her, and since she heard such information, she needs to think about everything. After all, after so much suffering, this is definitely about the Rizaean family. Blossom is the purest power, and it is definitely the power of the sea. And besides, the daughter of the sea was clearly mentioned here too. The girl reflects on the fact that Nicephora Risian and the Empress of Atlantis, and this all points to her at Terasa Nepuntos Atlantis. And that's why she thinks the main character of this prediction is Terasa. And her reincarnation occurred at such a moment. The main character reflects on the fact that the Ramet sanctuary, which serves the god of the earth, asks for forgiveness from her, and this seems strange to her. The brother takes the girl in his arms and says that she is very strange and at that time small. The lady thought that everything around her was spinning. Nathaniel says she doesn't have any markings and he doesn't understand how they know she's the dragon princess. Haber suggests just waiting for the moment when she awakens and suggests not treating her like that. Haber claims that once her powers manifest, she will make an agreement with the crown prince, and after that the curse will be lifted, because this is the essence of the appearance of the dragon princess. And since now the crown prince is 5 years old, and he does not understand what will happen to them if he awakens in these 14 years. Brother says that they can leave this place. If the curse breaks, then there will be no reason to stay here. Nathaniel heard this and said that he was glad because he did not want to die. And then he turns to the girl and asks how it happened that she was born right now. Haber says that the dragon princess has not been born for so long that they have already given up. And then he thanks the girl for this and says that until then they will protect her. The main character thought that they were probably also afraid of dying, because her brothers are still so young, and they are here as an offering since they have no parents. The girl understands that this concerns her. Even if she didn't want to be conscious, this body remembers the warmth that came from her parents. And her father was so kind to her, and her mother fought with all her might to protect her. Nisfer does not understand why her tears are flowing, because she has lived for more than 1,000 years, but behaves like a child. At this time, the brother does not understand why his sister is suddenly behaving this way, and he thought that she had fallen asleep again. Haber tells her brother not to wake her up and suggests leaving here. The guy with pink hair says that he wanted to stay here longer, but he understands that he is in the way, and therefore he will come tomorrow and bring a lot of toys and offers to wait for him. Nisfer thought that they would come to her again tomorrow, and if this was so, then she would not be so bored. The girl also reflects on the fact that she liked her brothers. A couple of days later, my brother came to my sister and told me that he had brought her a toy, and then invites her to look and also play with them. And at that time, the girl thought that they were with her again, and they come to her every day from their first meeting. The little lady began to babble a little, and the second brother began to call her foe. While playing with a toy, the girl thought that it would be better for her to see the sea than to sit here. Nathaniel asks his sister why she is so sad, and then asks if she wants him to kiss her on the cheek. The little lady objects and digs with her legs, and at this time she thinks about how dare he do this, and invites him to move her lips away from his imperial body. The main character points her finger at the window, and the brother realized that she wanted to look into it. And then he takes her in his arms and invites her to look. Nisfer looked at the sea and thought that this was her homeland and the place she loved, and she wants to go back there, swim and have fun with whales and dolphins, and also sing songs with mermaids. The little lady wants to sleep on the back of the turtles, and it still seems like it was yesterday, and she understands that she is unlikely to be able to return. However, she wants to go there to dive into the water. The brother with pink hair takes the girl away from the window because he thinks it is dangerous, and she can't do anything with this body. The main character saw her brother's book and immediately went to him to take it away. However, the older brother objects and says that he does not want to give her this book. Hearing this, the little lady began to tremble. And then he invites her to kiss his cheek, because he read in a book that children should have physical contact with their parents, because this is how they feel loved, and an emotional connection is formed. The guy with silver hair claims that since there are no parents, he replaces them, and he also says that if she doesn't want to, then she won't see the book. Nicephorus thinks about her, the Empress of Atlantis, kissing someone, and he thinks that she will fall for such a cheap trick of eye. Then she begins to cry. "Brother," he says, "in order to get what you want, you must be able to sacrifice something." At the time, the main character thought that she should not allow herself to be fooled, because her reputation is important to her. Haber takes his wall in his arms, and then she kisses him, and at that time he thought about what a parental feeling was, and he said with delight that it was very wonderful. At this time, the main character thought that he should stop talking nonsense and give her a book. Nicephor was looking at the book, but at that time she was secretly being watched by a mercenary who, by order of the emperor, was guarding the dragon princess. His main task was to protect her from being killed, and therefore he is forbidden to talk to her and make himself known. The guy, watching the girl, thought that he really wanted to talk to her because of her cute little nose and beautiful pink hair and plump legs, and she is all so lovely, and besides, the daughter of Mrs. Ninus herself. Mercenary, hearing that the little lady was reading and thought that modern children learn to read quickly. Nicephorus thought that the emperor had indeed kept his promise and assigned a bodyguard for her, and new maids would soon arrive. And then he continues reading again. The first emperor, Caortan, was one of the survivors of the village of Atlantis. The prosperous empire went underwater. All the apostles were left alive. Emperor Caorta, with the help of the magic that he took from the sanctuary of the sea dragon, built a new empire, and the value of this was the terrible curse that the sea monster placed on him. This madness could only be cured by the dragon princess ancestor of the Rizian family. Before her death, the dragon princess said that a new princess would appear who would save the imperial family. And it is known that after her awakening, she will have to enter into a contract with the crown prince. After reading this in the book, the main character thought that Atlantis had gone underwater, and her country sank underwater every 10 years and then returned to land again. Sea and land constantly replaced each other. Atlanteans were found very close to the water and therefore could breathe under it. And at this time, the main character thought that the empire had drowned and disappeared. And she also remembers the curse, and the more she thinks, the more strange it seems, and as if it was created intentionally. The agreement is concluded in due course at the central sanctuary of Ramet, but it can only be concluded after the princess turns 15 years old. Nice for... When reading the book, think that the method of breaking the curse is described in detail here, and she doesn't understand what the reason is and what the curse of the sea dragon is. Insanity is when all the muscles and joints are torn, and everything inside turns upside down, and it becomes difficult to breathe. Frightening visions come, and strange voices appear in your ears. The girl reads about hearing the voice of a young woman. She says terrible words associated with the curse with pain and hatred. And many people hear a young girl screaming and cursing. At this time, the main character thought that even she would go crazy from this, and just the fact that she imagined it already gives me goosebumps. And she thought that she had to wait until her 15th birthday, and so it would be good to quickly conclude an agreement and forget about this place. Nicephore reflects that it is unlikely that she will be forced to marry the crown prince, and she would like to grow up quickly. Meanwhile, in the hallway, the maid thanks the others for helping with the funeral preparations, and then he reports that no new offerings have been assigned to the palace. The maid opened the door and saw that the little girl was sleeping, and apparently she was tired. And then he invites the maids to clean up here quietly and leave. Suddenly, the main character heard a voice asking her to help, and at that time, I thought that she had already heard it last time. However, the girl does not understand what to help with and offers to speak, since she hears his voice. The voice says that he is in great pain and his whole body is torn into small pieces and therefore feels painful. Hearing this, Nicephore does not understand how she can help and thought that this was an illusion or reality since she saw a little boy. The guy with tears in his eyes asks for help, and he begs to be saved. Suddenly the voice, like the vision, disappeared and she does not understand what is happening here. But suddenly, she saw the boy again and asked who he was. The next day, when the girl woke up, she thought that she did not understand what it was. I thought that this boy was a mirage and understands that this cannot be, because it was clear from him how he suffered. The little lady wonders if she can meet him again. The maid tells Milady that today is the day of her parents' funeral. And then he says that it is not yet known who is behind the attack, and therefore it is too early to relax. The maid suggests putting the girl in safer clothes and asks if she minds. Hearing this, the girl does not understand what she is talking about. The maid explains that it is always windy on the seashore, and therefore you need to dress warmly. And so she chose a dress for the funeral. She also prepared armor in case she was attacked. And she reports that she herself put on a similar one. When the main character heard this, she thought that an ordinary maid would not use armor in case of danger, and so she becomes more and more interested in Adele. Nicephorus recalls that in her native Atlantis all funerals were held at sea. Since their life began in water and after death they had to return back. The girl understands that apparently they have the same thing. The organization of the funeral and the clothes all reminded her of her homeland. The elder reports that today they lost 2 defenders of Cawerton, the Duke and Duchess of Risean. And fortunately, their children are with them, and it was the will of the sea god. The man says that no one should experience this pain of loss. Then he wishes longevity for their children. 2 white boats with flowers sailed into the sea, and the man says that they are sending them to another life on a sea route. At this time, Nathaniel screams, cries, and says that they promise to go on a journey with him when he returns, and he doesn't understand why they didn't keep their promise. The boy claims that they should not have left them, and if he had been there, he would have protected them. The little girl was also crying, and at that time she thought that in this life she could know parental love, and she understands that everything was ruined, and she will not forgive and will definitely take revenge for them. and she understands that for this she needs to find help. Nice-4 muses that she will gather the power of the sea while she has the chance, because he doesn't know when he'll be able to get here again. At this time, the little lady felt that there were small gerbils in the air and her nose itched again. It was at this time that she thought that her nose was itching so much that she even stopped controlling herself. At this time, the residents of the city thought that apparently the heavens were angry because of death, and for them, these are clear signs of an approaching disaster. I also wonder what will happen to the Riesian clan if this girl is not a dragon princess. One man says that their family will end. Having heard this, the main character does not understand how they dare to discuss this loudly in front of the children. And I need to somehow calm them down, and thought that maybe they should tear out their tongues. The girl remembers that the emperor liked her smile and thought that maybe it was worth a try. And then she smiles and thinks about shutting up the person who talks a lot. At the funeral ceremony, the duke's daughter was seated in a chair, and one lady says that this girl is so sweet when she puts on a serious face and she doesn't even cry. Hearing this, the little lady thought that they seemed to have an eye for cuteness. The lady asks her friend if she thinks the emperor still has no plans to marry and confirms someone to be empress. Hearing this, the little lady thought that His Majesty did not have a wife, and probably all this is because of his madness, because he is afraid that he might harm the empress. The lady in the yellow dress says that she's worried about him, even though there is already a crown prince. And then they leave, and the little lady thought that they didn't let her hear the most important part. Another woman says that His Highness is too weak to even participate in such events. Ideas, he seems to be becoming more and more ferocious, because they say that the day before yesterday he killed all his servants. The lady says that he was swinging the sword, holding it in bloody hands, and maybe it was due to madness. There are also rumors that he writhes in pain and cries every day. At this time, the girl remembered the boy who asked her for help and thought that he was the crown prince. But the brothers said that he was 5 years old, and that child looked like 7. And also, he did not seem so ferocious as to kill his servants. The main character thought that she should ask about this personally, because before this he called her, but now she wants to do it. And if he hears her voice, then let him answer her. Nice-4 asks if he is the crown prince, and then hears a voice asking him to help him. And at that time, she thought that he was the one who should become her husband. And she saw a boy next to her. The butler informs His Majesty that the funeral banquet has begun, and he says he'll be there soon and then asks if those Roxborough bastards are there. The servant replies that they have just arrived with the prince. His Majesty says he needs to find out something from them. The butler asks the emperor if he thinks they killed the duke and his wife, and he replies that at least these are strangers who are wary of the Chaortan Empire. His Majesty says that if the dragon princess awakens, then the prosperity of the empire will come, and they were probably afraid of this. Roxborough. The royal family is second in power after the imperial family, and first of all you need to suspect her. And then the emperor asks what about the investigation. The butler explains that he searched all 3 guilds with assassins, but there were no traces. Hearing this, the emperor thought that if there was even one clue, he could immediately behead the royal prince. And then he tells them that they need to go and look at their insolent faces. Nice-4 looks at the boy and asks if he inflicted all these wounds on himself, and then she feels sorry for him and says that he suffered a lot. The girl asks if he is the sound of a trumpet, but she again hears a voice for help, and at this time she screams so that he doesn't leave. After all, she wanted to ask him a lot. When the emperor entered, he thanked him for their time. And then he says that in order to honor the memory of the defenders of the empire and his friends, a guest from distant countries has arrived to them, and therefore he offers to welcome him to his place. When the main character heard this, she thought that some important person would now enter the hall. And then she reaches out to the maid so that she can pick her up, because the girl wants to see everything. Gunther Jane Roxborough, Crown Prince Roxborough, greeted His Majesty. The emperor says that he has come a long way, and the boy thanks him for greeting him so cordially. At this time, His Majesty does not understand whether he came to express condolences or to believe the fruits of their actions. The prince says that he is not destined to understand their great loss, because he himself is still a child and came here to console children who have lost their parents. His Majesty says that he communicates with him confidently and praises him. The boy thanks and says that he brought gifts for the mourners, and offers to accept them as consolation. Nice 4. Watching them, I thought that Roxborough was a party at war with this empire, and she doesn't understand what the emperor meant, and she thought that he suspected them of the death of her parents. The main character thought that if they really did this, then she would never forgive them. Neither diplomatically nor politically, there is no mercy for them, and it will tear them to shreds. Adele saw the worried girl and asked what was wrong with her. Then she offered to change her diaper and asked if she was hungry. At this time, the prince looked at the little lady and thought that this little one, apparently, was that bride. And then he came up to her, and she thought that she saw a familiar face. Nicephorus remembers that you, Atlantis, were also an arrogant insolent. He is just as stupid and stubborn, and he still dares to be insolent to her every time. The boy looks at the girl, and she doesn't understand who he's staring at, since she still has 1,000 years to live. Adele suggests, "Miss, it's better not to mess with him." And at this time the girl thought that she never retreats from battle. The prince touches the girl and says that she is an eccentric, and there is nothing special about her. And he doesn't understand why this prediction would be about her, because even up close, the little one is no different. Hearing this, the little lady pushed the prince with all her might and thought that he should not show off. When the boy stood up, he pushed the girl, and the maid asked in surprise what His Highness was doing, since he swung at the child. And at that time, the girl thought that her Adele was smart. The prince objects and says that she hit him first. Haber approaches them and asks if he wanted to harm his sister. Houghton claims that she was the first to attack him. "Well, my brother says that she is still just a baby, and raising a hand to a small child is not befitting a prince." Hearing this, the main character thought that he needed to go study, since the prince was 1,000 years away from her. At this time, the emperor thought that this girl was so amazing because she slapped this arrogant boy. The butler reports that he even heard the sounds of blows, and he doesn't understand how such small hands can be like this. At this time, the emperor says that this girl is just a cutie, and he would like to turn back time and see this scene again. The servant says that this is the first time his master smiles like that since the death of the empress. The emperor thought that he had lost his sister, whom he deeply respected, and also said goodbye to Karzan and Ninus, his close friends. And he understands that now he must protect the 2 crown princes, whom the sister left behind, and the child Karzan and Ninus. His Majesty asks if they have trained maids to work in the offering palace, and the servant replies that they chose the best, and therefore His Highness need not worry about this. The emperor asks if anything unusual happened in their palace. The servant says that if Miss is in a good mood, then she dances with Dad, and he asks if he captured it for the archive, and then he suggests keeping it a secret. The main character recalls that when she was Empress To, she was relaxing with her friends. The magician suggests to his mistress not to look at her like that since he cannot concentrate. However, she apologizes and says that his hands are so beautiful that she wants to hold them. Kyorton claims that it is not becoming for her to apologize so often, and she agrees with him and says that, as always, he is right. But she holds his hand and does not let go. After these memories, the main character thought that she would cut them both into small pieces. And she doesn't understand why they betrayed her, even after everything that happened between them. She skips through those times through her country of Atlantis. The little lady reflects that she wants to find out what happened to her and why Kyorton betrayed her, and she realizes that to do this, she needs to gain access to a secret library, but he doesn't know how to get there. The next day, the maids brought a gift for the little lady and asked if she liked it. When the girl climbed into the walker, she thought that she had reached the end of freedom, and then she quickly ran into the corridor to the large window to see the sea again. Suddenly, Nicephor again heard a voice asking her for help and saying that he was in pain. The main character calms him down and tells him not to suffer because she will soon find him, and then she touches the stranger boy who asks her for help. Suddenly, the girl found herself in another place and thought that this was teleportation. And that wasn't what was written there, and she saw the crown prince lying in bed. At first, the main character thought that he had died, but fortunately he turned out to be alive, and on his head she saw the horns of a dragon. And I thought that the blood of a dragon flows in the veins of the crown prince. Nicephorus does not understand why there is no one next to him. After all, he is sick. And she understands that this boy certainly does not look like a 5-year-old child. As she came closer to the prince, she thought that he had impeccable features. And he is incredibly handsome. and such beauty awakens in her a desire to protect him, and she understands that he is her type. The main character reflects on the fact that such a little boy needs care, and then she puts a wet towel to her forehead. When he opened his eyes, the girl said that there was no point in worrying, since for her he was nothing more than a wounded seal keeper, and then he tells him not to get sick, but he doesn't understand anything. The crown prince looked at the little girl and doesn't understand where she even came from. And at that time I thought that he was seeing her because of madness. The main character remembers that, in addition to the agreement in that book, there was another way to help him, and she tries to remember what exactly. Before the contract is concluded, it is possible to alleviate the symptoms of the crown prince's madness using resonance. However, the main character does not understand how she can touch him, since he is in pain. Suddenly the boy grabs her and puts her on his chest, and at this time she thought that she could not breathe as he put his hand on her. Nicephorus does not understand why he does not ask for help, as he did before, and she thought that this could be because she saw his internal state, and she even likes his stubbornness. The next day, the girl saw a boy asking if she was awake, and at that time she felt the aura of a sea dragon, and I thought that he had incredible strength, which was equivalent to what she had at his age. But unlike her, it seems that the sea hates him. The little lady approaches the boy and asks if he's feeling better. The crown prince says what's surprising is that when he looks at her, he feels better and there is no pain. The boy is sure that she is that dragon princess from the fairy tale. And then he asks her about it. The prince asks if she remembers how they were in resonance, and then he says that the older he gets, the stronger the resonance will be. He thanks the girl. A boy with black hair asks a little lady if she wants milk, but the girl replies that no, and then screaming she says that the milk is already making her sick, and she wants a well-done steak and also shrimp fried in butter. The prince does not understand what the girl is talking about and asks if she wants something else. Hearing this, the young lady doesn't understand how he heard her thoughts. The guy claims that when she is so emotional, he gets fragments of what she is thinking about. A servant comes into their room and asks if Highness called him, and when he saw Miss Rizian, he was very surprised. The young master orders food to be brought to him and this girl. The prince realized that he did not know her name and asked about it. And then she says that in order to find out her name, she needs to call someone who knows her better. The little lady muttered under her breath, and at this time thought about what she herself could say, but she realized that it was problematic because he would not be able to understand her. The boy says that he doesn't want to let her go and doesn't understand what to do. The little girl thought that he should stop because he would not be able to take care of her. And then I thought that I would say my name myself. The prince says that he is glad to meet Nicephor and says that his name is Zion. At this time, the main character thought that he would also do such a trick with his eyes closed, and probably it would not surprise him. And the little lady doesn't understand if he's really 5 years old. After all, he has beautiful eyes and he doesn't look like an emperor. Zion says that he is really 5 years old. Hearing this, the girl was surprised and thought that he had heard her again. The guy explains that he understood it from her look. The prince explains that members of the imperial family grow up faster than other children, and he is the son of the previous emperor, and the current emperor is her mother's younger brother. And then she asks why he's looking at him like that. The boy replies that she is cute, and then she claims that she understands everything that is happening around her and only does not know how to speak. At this time, the main character thought that he wanted to melt her heart with his appearance, and I thought that I wouldn't mind marrying him. After all, she will remove the curse from him and simply divorce him. The little lady understands that she feels sorry for leaving him in such agony. Suddenly, her brother comes into their room and, screaming, asks if she imagined how worried they were. His Highness asks the servants if he asked to bring food, and they also invited other people. The maid falls to the floor and explains that she only brought breakfast, and then asks not to kill her. The main character heard this and doesn't understand whether it's possible to kill someone for this, and she wanted them to defuse the situation quickly. Nicephor thought about what she smelled, the smell of well-cooked meat, and then screaming, she says that she is hungry as a wolf, and she wants to be given food and not lose this maid. The girl realizes that no one understands her, and at that time she fell on the bed and began to cry. And then her brother comes up to her and asks what hurts her. Zion, that she can go. I heard that she was very happy and thanked Miss. The young master feeds the little girl, and she happily opens her mouth and eats. The brother asks His Highness if he can take Nicephor away after he feeds her, and then explains that they were very worried about her. At this time, the main character thought that this was not surprising, since she suddenly disappeared. She also thought that she would not like to leave Zion. The prince reports that he refuses. My brother heard this and was surprised and doesn't understand why. The young master explains that the little lady does not want to be in the palace as an offering, but here with him, and then he turns to the little lady and asks if he's right. Nicephorus thought that Zion was alone all this time. And although he looks absolutely healthy, he fought with himself, suffered, and even now he can barely stand on his feet. The prince turns to the little lady and tells her that he will give her everything she wants, but she just has to stay next to him. At this time, the main character thought that she could not leave him, and then he took her in his arms. The servants say among themselves that they are not at all suitable for each other. At this time, the girl thought that she heard everything and did not understand why Zion was silent. The maid wondered if the prince would harm the duke's daughter, and the servant says that, apparently, she will soon become an offering for him. The little lady does not understand what kind of people they are, because she knows that the master hears all this. Zion speaks to Joseph's servant and tells him to take the man away and give him the punishment of 30 lashes and dismissal. And the servant reports that he will carry out his order and then takes away the servant who thought badly of the prince. The servant, screaming at this time, asks for forgiveness from his majesty and reports that he was wrong and asks not to kill him. And at this time I thought that he was having an attack of madness. Sitting in the carriage, the prince asks the little lady if he has gone too far and what she thinks. However, she supports him and says that it was deserved. The young master says that he would not have paid attention if he was only talking about him, but he will not forgive the one who will involve her in dirty rumors. Nicephorus thought that he was smart, and this servant had forgotten his place and therefore must be punished. The prince says that this is surprising to him, because she is still just a baby, but to him she seems already big, just like him, and then he asks if she has another form that he doesn't know about. Hearing this girl remembered her face from the previous empress, and at that time I thought that he felt something. Zion claims that she and the Ryzian family, and therefore anything can happen. The girl thought that he apparently just asked, and she was surprised. The young master takes the little lady's hand and then kisses her. He thanks her for not being afraid of him, and then he says that he would like her to grow up quickly and learn to speak. Nicephor saw that the prince was smiling, and she did not understand what was wrong with him. But when I touched him, I saw that my breathing had quickened and my body was becoming cold. The main character understands that these symptoms are dangerous and suggests doing nothing. At this time, the prince scratches his face with his fingers. At this time, the main character thought that he could not control himself and was ready to attack at any moment, without even understanding Togo. But this sound is earlier. What happens when you absorb someone else's power? The little lady understands that this reaction of rejection and energy is raging inside the body and begins to hum from within. But the absorption of alien power in Atlantis was punishable by death. Nicephorus understands that it is unlikely that he killed someone in order to seize someone else's power, and it turns out that she does not understand what Khiortan has done. The main character asks the guy to come to his senses and then invites him to resonate again. She slowly rubs his hand and his underside, and then asks him to wake up. When Zion came to his senses, he wondered if the little lady was safe. But when he saw that she was unharmed, he said that thank God, because he thought that she would suffer because of him. The girl asks if he knows his symptoms. The boy explains that he is actually insanity, and if he loses control during attacks, they will start to stop him and he may attack. The prince thanks the girl for not doing anything. Hearing this, she thought that was why there was no one near him, and if there were servants who died while trying to help him. At this time, the main character thought that if she could go into the secret Imperial Library, then she could find out what spell Khiortan cast. Once the power is absorbed, it is passed down from generation to generation, and it is definitely something forbidden. Nicephor reflects that if she had been able to notice the betrayal of Khiortan and Doom earlier, then he would not have suffered so much. The servant turns to His Highness and reports that they have arrived, and the young master takes the little lady in his arms and invites her to go. The main character does not understand where they are, but when she saw the woman painted on the wall, she thought it was her. Xian reports that it will be very noisy inside and tells her not to be scared. Guys, time is short. The lady thought that she was already scared. And what a scoundrel Kyortan is, since he dared to carve her face. When they went inside the palace, the servants did not understand why this lady was here. The emperor asks why His Highness came here with his daughter, Risyan. Seonpo greeted His Highness, and Kyortan says that they are together, and then asks what happened. The young master talks about having something to tell him, and then reveals that he resonated with Nicephorus. When the servants heard this, they were surprised, and the young master did not understand why they reacted this way. The emperor, screaming, asks what condition he is in. The butler reports that nothing has changed yet, and everything is fine with the girl. She is absolutely healthy and still just as charming. His Majesty says that in the legends it turns out that she became an offering. But they have a different result, and he does not understand why. The young master says that he also wants to know about it. Hybert comes to them and says that His Highness, even if Nicephor is a dragon princess, he should not discuss issues concerning her without her relatives. The princess's brother asks if it is possible to express an official protest against the crown prince. Hearing this, the main character thought that, apparently, Nathaniel told Heiberg about everything that happened, and they are both worried and angry. But she doesn't understand how they can be so rude to His Majesty, even if they are from the Rizian family. The little lady hopes that her brothers will not be killed here and now, because he understands that this will create problems, and they should not behave like this with the emperor. Nicephor begins to wave her arms and say that everything is fine with her, but because she is small and no one understands her. Hybert looked at his little sister and thought that she was fine, and then apologized for being rude. His Majesty asks if they understand this themselves. The young master with silver hair reports that Nicephorus belongs to the Rizayan family, and while the crown prince reported his resonance, they were in the dark with her. Hebert believes that everything connected with Nicephor should first of all be known to her family, and before organizing such meetings, I would like His Highness to inform them about this too. The main character believes that they are right, since this concerns their relationship status, and Nathaniel and Heiberg should know about this, and this time her brothers are right. The emperor says that he has not thought about it and will therefore take note, and since today is a famous day, he suggests leaving this matter. His Majesty formally congratulates them on their release from offering status. Hybert thanks His Majesty and then asks to allow him to ask some questions to those people. The elder brother asks if there is a possibility that the dragon princess's power or quality of life could decrease, or someone would gain her abilities. Because the offerings originally existed to prevent attacks from the crown prince, who could not withstand the power of the sea dragon. Hybert says that then, if the strength of the resonance increases, and with the help of the agreement, the curse will be disarmed, but the dragon princess will not be around. And he asks that the prince will no longer suffer from attacks. At this time, the main character thought that her brother wants to hear that if he starts to feel better, then the dragon princess can be next to him. Nicephor thinks that she does not plan to be with Zion all her life, and when his condition improves a little, she will go on a trip, and she will enjoy her freedom, because in a past life she could, but could not afford it. The butler reports that they resonated too little, and need to be observed for at least 3 months. He reports that they themselves know that there are very few records of the past dragon princess, and most of them are in a secret library. The emperor says that the resulting madness is difficult to cure, and the butler says that it is worth studying the current princess a little more, especially since she is from the race of coral fairies. At this time, the main character thought that she also wanted to go to the secret library with them. Xian hugs the girl and tells her not to worry as he will be able to avoid harming her. At this time, the little girl screams and thinks that this is not what she is talking about. The young master reports that he knows very well what this feeling is, and therefore will not hurt her, and she need not be afraid. Nicephor believes that there are no people in this world who could hurt her, and she just wants to go to the secret library, and she also doesn't understand why they don't have glasses of water, because she would show what she wants. And at that time, I thought that she wanted to grow up quickly. The emperor says that from today, the place of interruption of Nicephorus will change, and there is a palace that was prepared for the dragon princess, and she will definitely like this place. The next day, the main character went to her palace and thought that it was very beautiful, and you could be amazed by it. The maid shows the little lady her bed and then asks if she is beautiful. The girl thought that her room was simply excellent and that such a bed was suitable for an empress. The maid says that the closet is full of cute clothes and these beautiful shoes, and she wants the girl to try them on quickly. Nice 4 thought that the clothing room was very huge, and then the maids offer her many dresses that she would try on. Suddenly, her brothers enter the room and ask why it is so noisy. Nathaniel turns to his little sister and tells her that he has something for her. Then he gives her the box and asks her to look at it. When the little lady opened this box, she thought that this was the luck stone of huge monsters, and that it probably belonged to her mother. The main character was surprised because this stone is very difficult to get, and she does not understand how they got it. Adele, seeing this bracelet, says that it was lost when she and the princess ran away that day, and she wonders how he ended up here. The brothers ask what she means and offer to tell her in more detail. The maid explains that on the morning of that ill-fated day, Mrs. Ninnis put this bracelet on the princess's hand, but the killer suddenly appeared while they were running away from him. The decoration fell out and was lost. Adele suggests that it may have happened at the entrance to the estate, and he fell out of the princess's hands, but they could not go back. The main character thought that she did not understand how Adele was not hurt in all this turmoil, and apparently it was because of the stone. After all, after they left the estate, they quickly picked up their trail, and it was at that time that the realization came to her. Nathaniel reports that he was lying by the fireplace, and at this time the maid realizes that there was a secret exit near the fireplace. A brother with pink hair puts a bracelet on his sister's hand. At this time, Nimsefor thought that apparently her mother already felt something was wrong. Suddenly, in the room, a maid wearing glasses falls to the floor and breaks a plate, and then asks for forgiveness. Hybert tells his sister that there will soon be a celebration in honor of her becoming a dragon princess, and it will be held in the Mother-of-Pearl Palace. And according to custom, the host of the celebration must arrange everything. But since she is still very young, he took on this work himself. Hearing this, the girl thought that it was great, since she had never organized such events and remembered that everything was done by Corton. Hebert says in 2 weeks and tells them to stay tuned. Nathaniel looked at the closet and asked his brother if he had filled this closet with jewelry for his sister. The little lady thought about getting this done on time. He should have ordered it on the first day he met her. And she understands, because the look of this man, who with all his appearance says that he is still better than this emperor. Nathaniel reveals that he and his brother bought the jewelry inside the cabinet together, and when they defeated those pirates, their treasure. Hybert turns to his brother and says that they have a lot to do and then suggests that he leave. The young gentleman with pink hair turns to his sister and says that he wants to live with her here in the Mother-of-Pearl Palace, but since he is no longer an offering, he must live in the estate of the Duchy of Riseon. Niceform tells her brother not to be sad, and at that time she thought that he should go since Kaber was waiting for him. The guy with pink hair thought that his sister wanted him to be near her and then asked her about it. The main character thought that she didn't mean it at all, and the brother says that they will see each other later and then kisses her on the cheek, and she thought that she was already tired of him. Nacefor says that he will come more often and then says goodbye to the girl and leaves. The little lady is thinking about the holiday, and she doesn't understand what will happen this time. 2 weeks later, it is the day of the celebration. The maids turn to the little lady and say that she is the most charming in the world, and it is impossible to look at her without tenderness. The maids say that they are sorry because one maid has to accompany her on the holiday. The maids turn to Adele and say that she must remember every detail and little thing associated with their princess in order to tell them how it was, and then invite them to have a good time. When Adele saw the young master, she invited her mistress to look at him. Sion reports that he has come for Nicephorus, and when the little lady saw him, she thought that he looked dazzling and was becoming more and more beautiful every day. The maid says that she is glad to meet him and then greets him. The prince takes the girl in his arms and says that he feels great today, and all this is thanks to her. And when he came here, he felt better and better. The main character understands that she was next to him all these 2 weeks, and that's why he didn't have seizures. Sion reports that when they come in, there will be a lot of annoying people, and the aristocrats will not like the news that they resonated. The girl doesn't understand why and asks about it. The prince explains that the aristocrats do not like that the imperial family is strengthening its position, and they want their influence to grow. Therefore, people will openly demonstrate their hostility towards her. Hearing this, the main character thought that they were scoundrels, but she was not bothered at all. And then he thought that he shouldn't worry because she never runs away from a fight. The young master says that this is a little lady honey. She shouldn't be so skeptical. After all, they are not going to war. Nice thought that she should always be ready. The prince explains that they have gathered to congratulate her and are unlikely to go too far. And then he says that if they dare, he will kill them all, and therefore suggests the little lady not to worry. At this time, the girl thought that she was now most frightened by him. The prince announces that they will come in now, and then opens the door. And the butler announces that His Highness the Crown Prince and the Dragon Princess have arrived. The ladies who were in the hall said that this sweet lady was very beautiful. However, one man says that he expected something more, since she is a princess, and another agrees with this. Hearing this, Nicephore thought that she remembered their sad faces. And then she begins to act up, and the maid does not understand what is wrong with her. The prince explains that apparently she doesn't like something. Adele invites His Highness to take the girl from him. The maid asks her mistress if she wants to be put in a walker. The girl says that she wants this, and then waves her head. And at this time she thought that perhaps she would have a chance to enter the secret library. The prince turns to the little lady and asks her to be careful and not fall. At this time the girl thought that she was in a walker and did not understand how she could fall. Nicephore thought that first she would deal with those people she didn't like. The aristocrats say among themselves that she is just a child and does not understand what power she can have. The gentleman says that she is a success in appearance, but when she grows up there will be something to look at. Another man heard this, smiles and says that he agrees with him, because Duchess Ricienne imagined so much about herself because of her appearance, and therefore found herself in a completely different world. Before the man has finished finishing these words, champagne is poured over his clothes. The aristocrat asks why he pours small champagne on himself like a child. The man explains that it poured out on its own, and then asks if they noticed it. Seeing this, Nicephore thought that she would not allow him to insult his mother. The main character reflects on the fact that she dealt with everyone in the banquet hall and thinks that she needs to suppress her aura so that no one will sense it. And then she quickly ran away to the other end of the castle. Suddenly the girl thought that something interesting was about to happen, and with the help of a walker she wants to open the door. A man with red hair screams for it to be quiet, and he asks how many times to repeat who is knocking there. The little girl, when she saw the man, she thought that he was a high-class magician because he had stars on his chest. When the magician saw the girl, he asked if she was a dragon princess. The little lady entered the room and saw many scattered, and when she picked up one of them, she read that this was the language of the sea giants and the tasks of the ancient Atlanteans of magic. And she reflects on the fact that he came here to study. The man holds his head and screams that these are not toys. Hearing this, the girl does not understand and asks about it. Nicephore saw that there were mistakes in each piece of paper, but then she read that the third option was correct. The magician asks in surprise whether Her Highness pointed her finger at him. Correct answer. And he doesn't understand how this can be, since even a child understands it better than he does. And the man thought that the little one also knew the language of the sea giants, and he understands that this is simply not intuition. The magician announces that his name is Chocolat, and then says that he wants to become her student, and it doesn't matter how she reads and solves problems, and then asks her to just teach her this. Hearing this, the main character thought that she had forgotten that all magicians call Togo and the child a mentor, and at that time I thought that this was a chance for her. The girl thought that everyone would consider her a genius, and at the same time she would be able to hide her powers, and therefore the assassination attempt will be less, and if it is revealed that she is smart, she will be able to ask for access to the secret library. The magician asks Her Highness if she will accept him as her student. Nicephore thought that first she needed to cry and call someone, and then she started screaming. Within a few minutes, the prince and her brothers came running into the room, and they were wondering who dared to offend her. The little lady thought that they had come so quickly because they were standing outside the door. Nathaniel asks who dared to offend his little sister. And then the prince takes the girl in his arms and invites her not to talk to him, because he is a bad uncle. Nicephorus is capricious and crying at this time, and the prince asks if he should bring her water. Hearing this, the magician offers water. When the girl took the water, she used magic to make letters out of the water, and Chocolat read that she needed to call the main magician. The main character thought that she needed to make a deal with him. Sitting at the table with the emperor and the magician, the girl thought that she just wanted to talk to the chief magician so that she could be given access to the library. Chief Mage Elaide Iblosa does not understand why they are all gathered here, since the sage also came. Jackalot Shrieks reports that Her Highness the Dragon Princess is a genius, and then she explains that she was able to solve a difficult problem in the language of the sea giants. Because of a moment, she solved the correct answer. The head magician asks if he can be held accountable for his statements, and he replies that he is putting his powers as a magician on the line. Elaide takes the piece of paper and invites Her Highness to read it. The girl looked and thought that this was a collection of recipes for sea giant dishes. The chief magician thought that this was too difficult for her. Nice Four makes letters with the help of water and asks what will happen if she reads it for him. The sage asks the girl if she knows the language of the sea giants. And at this time, the main character thought that she had shown him this with the help of water, and she did not understand why he would stick his face towards her. The magician asks the lady when she learned to use magic, and at this time, she does not understand what she should answer, and she draws about the fact that she has known her since birth. The emperor says that she is a Rizian, and this is not surprising, and her older brothers also succeed in everything, and it is impossible to explain this genius since she is still just a baby. His Highness says that the world is full of people more brilliant than him, and they must deny her talent because they cannot admit it. The emperor reveals that he has decided to keep her abilities a secret for now, and even if she is a genius, it does not change the fact that she is still a child, and they cannot take away the childhood to which she is entitled. The great sage smiled and said that he should live a couple more decades to see the adult princess and work with her on various studies. The head magician says that he must live even longer than he has in order to develop different types and techniques of magic together. At this time, the main character thought that she had not given her consent at all, and she just needs access to the secret library, and if they let her in, they will receive very valuable information through her. The emperor says that Nicephorus is not allowed there, and if he opens the secret library, then its secret will be known even in neighboring territories, and this will expose it to even greater danger. The chief magician says that if Her Highness helps research ancient magic in 10 years, and the great sage says that if Her Highness helps research ancient language and history, then they have something to offer His Majesty. Hearing this, the emperor asks if they want to make a deal with him. The magician Eliad claims that no one will say anything if he brings papers from the secret library, and Her Highness the Princess can look through them in his office. The great sage agrees with him and says that he is right, because no one will suspect anyone if the child looks at old papers. Courton turns to the little lady and asks what she thinks, and at this time the little girl waved her hands with delight and thought that this was just great. The emperor asks what he should bring from the secret library and invites her to tell her what exactly she wants. Nicephorus uses water to show that she needs records about the first emperor, as well as papers related to the death of the ancient empress of Atlantis, and she must learn at least something from this in order to move on. A few minutes later, the emperor invites Zion to come in, and the little lady is surprised because she didn't know that he was there outside the door the whole time. His Majesty asks the prince if he heard everything, and the boy turns to His Majesty and says that he heard everything. However, the emperor reminds him that he asked to be called uncle in private, and then informs him that this place rightfully belongs to him. The prince asks his uncle what he wants to get from the main magician and sage. Courton says that he himself must understand that the situation is not the best, and they do not know what Roxborough intends to do. Well, perhaps they are preparing for an attack. His Majesty reports that they can immediately declare war and slaughter them all, but he knows that life for their people could get even worse, and when the time comes, they will be obliged to become the strength of the empire. Hearing this, the main character thought that the emperor wanted to use magicians and sages if a war suddenly broke out, and she understands that a real emperor should think this way. Courton believes that the symptoms of madness are increasing day by day, but he will hold on and does not know when his limit will come. The prince suggests not to say that to his uncle, and at this time, Nicephor thought about how they had to, because she only got goosebumps from what she read in the book, and he's afraid to even imagine what it's like to experience such terrible pain. The emperor turns to the prince and informs him that he must improve, And at this time, the girl understands that even despite this, he cares about his nephew and tries to endure everything. His Majesty says that until the prince grows up, he will have to wear clothes that are not made for him. The girl thought that she couldn't tell them anything, and even if they were descendants of Caorton, it didn't make her feel better that they were suffering. And she understands that, being a child, she is not able to solve this problem. And so, we will have to wait for her to grow up. After that, the days passed slowly and quickly. Because of this time, the main character grew noticeably, and she turned 2 years and 1 month old. Nicephorus wonders if the chief magician and sage are tired of it, and she doesn't understand how many invitations they sent. Adele picked the girl up and asks what they will play today. The little lady talks about how she wants to play tumble. The maid says that Her Highness spent the whole day yesterday on the bed. However, the little lady asks that the maid gave her the book, and when she got hold of it, she thought that it was already all wrinkled, and she must ask to be rewritten. The girl reflects on the fact that she very diligently studied all the papers related to the death of the Atlantean Empire, and in her entire life, she had never seen such a huge wave that swallowed up an entire country. The sea seemed like a giant, angry monster, and all their achievements were destroyed in the blink of an eye. And when the time came to go underwater, the sea slowly covered the empire. Nicephor thought that she had read this all countless times, and she cannot imagine this terrifying scene, because what was written next was how the first Emperor Caorton regretted it. The main character understands that this part is not so important and she can skip it, but she only thinks that from this moment the most interesting thing begins. The girl reads that the words written after the Emperor's regret, rereading, she feels everything that she did when she first read it, and this is shock, anger, and despair. The main character thought that she should see this passage again, but she's infuriated that he didn't write anything about it. Nicephorus understands that after this difficult sentence, he was describing what he did after the destruction of Atlantis. The Atlanteans had to get used to life on Earth, and for a people who had no one to rely on. He created a new faith, thinking that this would perpetuate their memory of Atlantis. The little lady does not understand what kind of faith he created, because in the Ramed sanctuary they worshipped the god of the earth. She thought that he had sealed her with his own hands and wanted to perpetuate the memory of Atlantis. The girl claims that she is Atlantis and then begins to scream. The maid asks Her Highness if everything is okay and then asks if she would like some refreshing juice. Nicephor said that she was thirsty, and at that time thought that she was putting a lot of pressure on Adele. Heber came to visit his sister and reports that she is lazy. Because she's brilliant today, she's messing around. The girl asks if he compliments her, but the brother objects and says no. The princess asks why he came since he is very busy, and she understands that even after he became the duke, he comes as soon as he has a free minute. My brother says that he read a very popular book about children, and it says that this age is very important in a child's life. That, and then he gives her a new toy and encourages her to play with it as it will help increase her sensitivity level. The little lady doesn't understand how to play with this and what to do. And then the girl smears the paint on her palm and applies it to the gentleman's face. The maid was surprised, and when she saw the little lady, she offered to wipe her hands and offered to drink juice and the young master some hot chocolate. Hybert sees his sister laughing and asks why she is doing this. The girl points her finger at him and says that he drinks chocolate. The young master asks what is strange about him drinking hot chocolate. Hearing this, the girl thought that she didn't say it was strange, and only thought that he had a sweet tooth, and then smiled. Because his tastes don't match his appearance at all. The main character thought that it was strange, since Nathaniel does not like sweets. Hebert says that she is moody today, and then asks what she wants to know, and says that he will answer all her questions. Nicephorus says that she wants information about Atlantis and the first emperor, but understands that her brother knows nothing about it. And then she remembered that she was interested in something, and it was the previous empress. The girl remembers that it is not written anywhere about the death of the former empress, but probably Hybert knows something about this, and then asks about it. The main character saw the maid's surprised face and didn't understand what it was, and then thought that she asked something she shouldn't have asked. Adele, you invite Her Highness to change clothes. However, the girl does not understand why and asks about it, because she doesn't understand when she managed to get so dirty. Nicephorus thought that she apparently asked what was forbidden. The maid tells her quietly in her ear that it would be better for her not to mention the previous empress, since it is a very painful memory for them. Adele reports that her mother, Mrs. Ninis, considered the previous empress her older sister, and after what happened, she even stopped eating and drinking. And this event was shocking, but throughout it was hard to see the state of Mrs. Ninis. The main character understands why they were so upset because of her question, and then she says that she didn't know and thanks her for what she said. The maid says that since they started talking about Mrs. Ninis, she remembered her words, which she asked to convey to the little mistress, and it would also be good if she could say this personally, and asks if the girl would mind since she will convey the words to her instead of her mother. Nicefor says she doesn't mind. Adele says that those born with the power of a sea dragon have a painful attachment, and the previous empress felt this way for her lover, and the current emperor to his sister. He says that this obsession can manifest itself as friendship, crush, or family love. After hearing this, the main character does not understand why she decided to tell her this. The maid says that she will now speak in the words of Mrs. Ninis, and then he claims that when the crown prince begins to become attached to her, then she should not resist, since she is able to cure his illness and therefore may not become attached to her. Adele says that there is an age difference between them and therefore he will consider her his little sister. She also wonders if she will become part of his family for the sake of the people. A woman with pink hair touches the girl's head and says that she wants her daughter, as befits a dragon princess, to fulfill her duty with great responsibility. The maid says that she thinks the prince is already attached to her since he visits every day. At this time, the main character thought that she would not say that because she had never seen her mother, but she could imagine what kind of person she was. And first of all, she thought about the desires of the people, and then about her own. Mom was an aristocrat. She tried to fulfill all the duties assigned to her. Little lady talks about how she likes people like that, and Mom was great. Adele says that she agrees with her because she was a wonderful person and always tried to protect her daughter. Hebert says that he doesn't even want to become one family with them, and at this time Nicefor thought that he had heard everything, and then asks if Xion is stronger than Hebe, and she wonders if that's why he doesn't like him. The brother says that next time he will bring his sister something that can occupy her little mouth. A couple of days later, Nicefor dined with the prince, but when the maid fed her, she became capricious, and after eating a few spoons of cake, she said that she didn't want any more. The prince says that the cake is very tasty and invites her to eat a little more and then calls her foe. Hearing this, the girl screams and says that he should not call her that because she does not like it. The little lady remembers that Nathaniel came up with this nickname for her, and everyone refers to the Grand Empress as a child. Xion asks the girl what he should call her, and then says that only he can address her that way. He claims that he will call her Nikki. The prince says that she is his nickname. Hearing this girl thought that it was a little dangerous, since he might not let her go later. After all, she understands that she is here to lift the curse, and Zion must find another passion for herself. The main character understands that before she leaves the palace, she wants to go to the library. The prince reports that when they get married, she will become an empress and will even be able to live there, and she replies that it's too long. Zion reports that in return he will give her a gift, and then he hands her a box inside which was a precious stone, and his name was Sleeping Nymph. Seeing the gift, the girl thought that the nymph was a fairy of water, and she had been in this state for at least 500 years. And those who are close to the element of water can enter into a contract with a nymph. With the help of the nymph's power, it will be possible to breathe underwater for a certain time, and the young master claims that Nikki will certainly be able to wake her up. At this time, the main character thought that she did not need the ability to breathe underwater, but the nymphs knew a lot so that it would be useful to her in any case. Nicephorus takes the stone in her hand and thinks that she wants the nymph to wake up. And then he invites her to say what she wants in order to fulfill her request. And he asks if she wants the girl to find her a mate. The nymph will ask the princess to find her a mate and wake her up. And then she reports that her mate is inside the stone, and some people did this on purpose. Poe. How has been sealed for over 1,000 years, so she understands what it's like to be locked up. The main character says that once she meets these people, she won't just leave it like that, because he also knows well what sealing spells are. The nymph says that if she finds her mate, she will tell about it. Nicefor says that no matter how much time and money it takes, She will definitely find her mate to find out about her spell. The main character asks the prince where he found this stone. He replies that he bought it at an auction. However, she claims that this is only half of it, and it takes a couple to make it work. And there may even be several of them. Zion says that we need to collect as many of them as possible, and just now the largest auction in the world has opened, and since the auction is held at night and not during the day, he invites her to go together. Hearing this, the main character claims that she will go with him. And at that time, I thought that she would definitely find her mate, and looked at the pebble. Pieces of the same stone, created in one place, are called family pieces, and if someone wanted to seal it, then he would have no choice but to use a stone of the selected class. Nice 4 is thinking about finding a mate. It will not be so difficult for this nymph, and if she manages to find an object with the same shape, appearance, and place of origin as his. Sitting in the carriage, the little girl looked at the prince and thought that she barely recognized him, because not only did he change his appearance, but she too. The prince reports that in a few days Nathaniel and Hybert will arrive at the Mother-of-Pearl Palace, and he thinks that he already talked about this, but since they are already here, then and buy a gift for Nathaniel. Hearing this, the main character thought that Nathaniel was leaving somewhere far away, and it seemed that Zion did not want to talk about it now. The girl says that she has a blank check from the emperor, and then shows it, and says that they can buy whatever she wants. The prince reports that they have arrived, and there will be a lot of people at the auction. He says that the guards are watching over them, but still invites the girl to hold his hand tightly. When they went inside, Zion offered her binoculars, and said that this way she could see better. The young gentleman asks the girl to support the binoculars because they are heavy, and when she looked at it, she reported that number 9 looked good. The presenter says that he thanks everyone who joined them today, and then he says that the last day of the auction is beginning, and he hopes that they will not spare their money. Nicephore turns to the prince and says that she wants number 9, and he says that this number is still far away, and therefore suggests taking a little nap. I heard this girl object and say that she will watch, and the prince asks if she can't sleep. The main character thought that she was in the body of a child, and she really wanted to sleep, and thought that she would lie down a little. Suddenly the girl heard that the next number was number 9, and then she screamed that it was her turn. The prince suggests that she should not worry about the price, but simply place a bet. When the bidding began, Nicephore turns to His Highness and says that she has seen this man before, and he is Roxborough, and he, the prince's subordinate. Sion is sure that Roxborough's henchman also wants this thing, and apparently he learned from somewhere about the importance of number 9. The prince announces that they should make the biggest bet, and the girl supports him in this. Sometime later, the main character found out what they had done, and she gladly thanks the prince. Xion looked at Roxobo and thought that this was right for him, since he lost in this auction. The young master asks Nicephore if she wants anything else. The little lady replies that she needs a few more things, and he says that's good, and reports that more stones will appear. Suddenly, the main character saw the stone and thought that she needed it as a pair, and at that time, she thought that she was incredibly lucky and would again make the biggest bet. Servant Roxobo. Very Evil says that if it weren't for this little guy, he would have had this stone. After all, King Roxobo ordered this man to find an incredible gem worth hundreds or even thousands of ordinary stones. The servant reflects on the fact that that stone was better than all the others. If only he knew that such a stone would appear, he would not spend money on the rest, and he does not even have time to deal with the stones he has already purchased. And he thought that everything was wrong, and he would have to get rid of them. At this time, a man approaches him and says that the crown prince has ordered to find out everything about the recent buyers of precious stones. At that moment, the servant Roxobo realized that he would return to his master empty-handed and without having any of those stones on which they would spend a fortune. Nicephore looks at the jewelry and thinks that they are so big that she will be able to make exactly 4 pieces. The girl thinks about the fact that she will cast a spell, and no matter how far from each other the people with these brooches are, thanks to her, they can always feel each other's condition. The main character understands that all the brooches will turn scarlet even if one gets hurt, and with such a body it's too much for her. After a while, the little lady says that everything is ready, but she has no strength at all. But the main thing is that order is more important. After all, the nymph became a fish, The girl looks at the waterfish and says that it is time for them to tell about the seal that was placed on her. The fish says that this seal of time and rebirth at a certain moment is removed itself and makes it possible to be reborn. Nicephorus realized that they could not kill her then because of this seal. The nymph reports that she has not lost her memories and has not lost herself, and these are the characteristics of a sealed person. And on top of everything else, a strong protective spell was cast on her, protecting her from external evil. The girl thought that nymphs do not lie and the sea does not lie, and this means all this must be true. The main character says that this is a lie, but the fish objects and says that this is not true, and the girl says that Kay Orton and Doom betrayed her. And she doesn't understand what kind of rebirth with protection this is. The nymph assures that there is no doubt about this design of the seal, and then she remembers that he assured her no matter what happens, he will not leave her. Nicephorus thought that it didn't matter what kind of witchcraft they used. Since they didn't say anything, they put a seal on her. And they did not want to understand her at all and were not on her side at all. The main character thought that she would never forgive these traitors. Nathaniel came to his sister's room. The brother asks if she feels good. The little lady asks if he came alone. And he replies that his brother has some business in the provinces, and therefore he will return a little later. Nicephor asks Nadi if he is also leaving somewhere, and he replies that it's hard for him to leave his sweet Fofo, and he says that he doesn't want to leave, but when he returns, she will be completely grown up. The girl asks how far he is going. The brother replies that these are winter exercises, and so he is going to the pole, because every high-ranking family must definitely send this representative. And the elder brother is the duke, and therefore he will have to go. At this time, the main character thought that it would be better for her to go, but since she is still a little one, she must stay here. Nathaniel assures that everything will be fine, and they are all going along the usual path, and there will be magicians with them. The little lady reached under her pillow and pulled out a stone and said that she herself made it for him. Seeing the gift, the brother says that he thanks her. And then he screams with delight that he received a gift from his little sister, and this is a special gift for him. The girl asks if he likes it, and the brother answers that he really likes it. And at this time, she thought that she knew that it was useless to trust others, but she could not deny her affection for him. Nicephorus invites his brother to carry this stone with him, and he must promise her this. And he assures that this thing will always be with him, and he promises. The little lady thought that now she was much calmer, and then she pulled her hand so that he would lift it into hers. The brother asks why she is so adorable to him, and then says that she wants to become like her big brother. Hearing this, the girl thought that she was many hundreds of years older than her brother, and he did not know about it. Nicephor hugs his brother and asks him to be careful, otherwise she will get angry, and he replies that he will be very, very careful and pulls her into his arms. A few days later, the main character thought that the emperor was supposed to come to her at 10 o'clock, but now it was already 12. Suddenly a maid enters the room and announces that the emperor's knight Lucas, accompanying him, is heading towards her. When the knight greeted the girl, she thought that he had come to invent excuses for the cameraman's lateness. Lucas reports that the emperor is having an attack of madness, and this attack is very strong, and it happened 2 hours ago, and it is also much stronger than usual, and yet the emperor did not feel better. Nicephor, screaming, asks why she was not invited. The knight explains that they considered that this attack would not be so dangerous, and therefore they called her late. And then he apologizes. The little lady asks if Zion is okay. Lucas replies that he feels a little better now, but the backyard of his palace was completely destroyed, and at this time the girl thought that everything was very bad. When the knight came with the girl to the master's room, she saw the prince who was sitting and asked her with pleasure if she had come. The little lady immediately ran up to him and then asked if he was still unwell. She also wondered if he was okay, and Zion replies that he is fine because she is near him. The girl touches his chest and says that he should feel better. And at this time she does not understand, since they had a resonance, why he is not getting better. Nicephorus turns to the servants and asks if they have medicine, but the servant replies that medications do not help during attacks. At this time, the main character thought that she needed to help him, and there must be a way. And then he remembers what was written in the book about touch, and also that resonance works better with touch. The little lady kisses the prince, and thinks that since she's doing it anyway, she'll take the opportunity to make him feel better. The girl saw that everything was fine with the prince, and she understood that the power of a kiss was so great. Zion thanked the girl and says that she is his angel, happiness and good luck. And then he apologizes for making her worry. At this time, the main character thought that she was glad that the prince was finally feeling better. And then she holds his hand and talks about how she will become his family. And also, if he feels bad again, he just has to tell her about it. The prince replies that he will definitely tell her this, since they are now a family. The emperor says that Zion has already fallen asleep again, and he does not understand when she will stop being angry and asks the little lady about it. At this time, Nicephore is extremely unhappy, and the girl thought that, to be honest, she's almost not angry. But he was late, and it's true. His Majesty asks the girl what he should do to make her stop being angry. Nicephorus extends his palm to him and tells him to give her money, and then he claims that time is money, and he should give it to her. The girl reports that 100 gold coins per second of his precious time. The emperor heard this, screaming and asking if she was a creditor, and he doesn't understand why she pronounces everything about money so clearly. However, the little lady replies that he upset her and says that she has been waiting so long, and therefore gold will correct the situation a little. The emperor says that he really cannot just waste the state treasury, and he asks if he can give her a gift then. And this could be, for example, a beautiful boat so that she can always play on the water. And he will cast a spell so that the boat does not sink in the water. Hearing this, Nicephore was delighted because she could often go to the beach with her, and then he says that no spells are needed, and if the boat capsizes, it can splash around in the sea for a while. The girl asks how much it costs to cast a spell. His Majesty replies that it is 1 gold bar, and she offers to give it to her and asks if he is a greedy beef. The emperor replies that he is not a greedy beef, and the girl says that he is a big greedy person, and he has a terribly small soul. At this time, His Highness thought that he did not want to argue with the girl, and then said that he was making a deal with the baby. Hearing this, she was happy because she now has 1 gold bar and a boat. At this time, the prince thought that everything had gone well according to his plan. And sometimes it's not so bad to lose your temper on purpose. After all, even though he is his uncle, he cannot allow him and Nikki to spend time alone. The young master recalls the words of his mother, who said that one day he would have something that belonged only to him. And he thought that the nicknames were only his, and he won't let anyone take her away. A few days later, it was time for Nathaniel to leave for training, which will last about 12 months. Since many wizards are able to cast a spell, they can prevent possible accidents, incidents, and attacks. The brother approaches the little lady and asks if she wants to kiss him goodbye. And at that time, she opened her arms for a hug and thought that he just needed to come closer to her. Nathaniel asks if she wants to see how cool he is up close, and he wonders what she wants to do. The girl says that she has been gathering strength for this day, and then hugs her brother to cast a spell on him, and no matter how hard it is for him, his heart will never stop. And then she asks him to be careful, and, to seal it, she kisses him on the cheek. At this time, the young master thought that he felt as if the whole world was at his feet. Hebert also came to say goodbye to his brother, and tells him to be careful and not create problems. Nathaniel assures him not to worry and suggests that he take better care of their fofo. When her brother left, the main character thought that she didn't even want to think about not seeing him for so long. But he understands that he will return in any case, and in a maximum of a year. Hibbert turns to his sister and says that she is cute and can cry. 5 years later, the worst thing that could happen to a 7-year-old child happened. Nicephorus says that the needle is poisonous, and the older she gets, the more it infuriates her. After all, she understands that the poison does not affect her anyway, and it is initially a liquid. The main character calls the services and tells them to quickly come to her. And then he says that they are unworthy swindlers who are trying to take away such an unfortunate and small child like her, and asks if they even have a conscience. The girl invites the servants to apologize, but they are silent, as if they had filled their mouths with water. And she thought that they had decided to ignore her order. Suddenly, the little lady remembered that she had forbidden them to speak because she had tied their throats with magic. But when she let her go, they asked her to be spared. Nicephore says that in any case there are places where it is better not to interfere, and then she asks if they understood everything. And at that time, she thought that it was good that she was already 7 years old, and now it was easier for her to use the power of the sea. The girl turns to the servants and says that they will face the death penalty for attempting to kill the dragon princess. And then he says that they were just doing their job and asks if the real customers are guilty and they are definitely novice killers. The main character says that they can be used and to begin with, she will simply throw them into the dungeon. Nicephorus thought that it was already 9 o'clock and Zion should soon come to her. And then she heard the sound of footsteps and thought that he usually comes at that hour, and she doesn't understand why he comes so early. The girl thought about how he would worry if he found out that she had dealt with the killers herself, and he might even get angry. Guys, it's time. She thought about pretending to be asleep and nothing would happen. The prince sat down on the bed next to the girl and said that he had already arrived, and then asks what happened. The little lady gets out of bed and says that she doesn't know anything. Sion claims that she imprisoned the murderers and asks if that's not true. She replies that she doesn't understand what he's talking about, and the prince claims that she still doesn't trust him. Hearing this, the main character objects and says that this is not true, screaming. And at this time, she thought that she needed to change the topic, and she asks Zion why he came so early. His Highness explains that there is a big meeting today, and that very topic will be discussed today. And at this time, the little lady thought that she was not finished and asked if he was talking about the worst thing that could happen to a 7-year-old child. The prince replies that what she says is correct, and then explains that today they will discuss whether it is worth continuing the search for the missing during winter exercises. Nathaniel, who became part of the winter exercises, never returned after 5 years. The girl understands that aristocrats who do not support the current emperor will be against it. And since they are against continuing the investigation, and their argument is that all previous attempts were absolutely failures, the prince reports that the first and second search parties returned with nothing, and so they don't want to waste money. Hearing this, the main character says that they are terrible people, which only oppose the will of the emperor, and she doesn't understand how someone can be so insensitive when even their family members were at those exercises. Sion explains that they always sent illegitimate children or offspring who they felt didn't have much potential to train, and the girl understands that apparently that's why they don't want to spend money on searching, and she doesn't know what they have there, but Nathaniel is very important to her. His Majesty asks the girl if they can have breakfast first, and then asks if she is hungry. Sitting at the table, Nicephore reports that her brooch is still in order, and the prince replies that he is too, and the girl says that her brother is still alive, and she doesn't understand how she cannot go on a search. At this time, the main character thought that there was blood flowing in her, and apparently that's why she became too strong, and holding the fork in her hand, she broke it. The surprised prince asks if the girl is okay and is not hurt. She replies that everything is fine, and in the end, it was not her who suffered, but the fork. The boy says that it is clear to him, since there is no fork now, he will feed her himself. At this time, the main character thought that with the help of the sea giants, they could easily find Nathaniel. And she wondered if there was information about sea giants in the secret library. And she also wonders whether she can enter this library, since she is already 7 years old. The prince says that he does not think so, because for this she needs to marry him and become empress. And then, screaming, he asks her to get married right now. Zion says that he is not yet an emperor, and therefore they will not succeed, because only the emperor, empress, and crown prince can officially enter there. At this time, the main character thought that she had asked this question to the prince more than 100 times, but his answer was always the same, and she was thinking about sneaking into the secret library. But the library is under a serious spell, and so she cannot remove it. After all, this spell was cast by Coorten. Nicephorus does not understand what he wanted to hide so badly. Sion says that if he allows her to go there, the noble faction will make a fuss. It's as if the crown prince is interfering in the affairs of the empire and is in cahoots with the little dragon princess. The girl thinks that you need to do something incredible and somehow distinguish yourself in their eyes, and so that the aristocrats don't even dare to open their mouths, and as a reward, ask for access to a secret library. The young master heard this and said that his girlfriend was smart. Well, he doesn't understand what she needs to do to surprise these aristocrats, and then he says that he will see if she can help in any way at the meeting, since she is such a sweetheart. Nicephorus, crying out, says that the meeting is very soon and invites him to go faster. The prince replies that he is on his way, and then says that they will see each other later. The little lady went to the dungeon and said that the servants behaved decently. And then he asks which of them wants to die here and who wants to live. She heard a silent scream and thought that was great because she had a good heart and would therefore spare them. The princess says that if they become the official mercenary killers of the castle. Heard this, one of the rumors says that this is some kind of torture. But the little lady assures them that this is an official position, and they will even be paid overtime on nights and weekends. The girl says that the castle specially established these positions for them, and the servant asks if she might have a salary. The princess answers, screaming, that given the danger of working 500 gold pieces a month, the main character says that if they think of betraying her, they will immediately become food for sharks. The men fell to their knees and announced that they were her faithful servants, and then he says that they really didn't want to kill her, and this is all because of the assignment of the Crescents. Hearing this girl thought that the Crescents were the largest murder group in the empire, and despite the active investigation under the leadership of the emperor, the true goals and motives of the organization had not yet been revealed. The main character remembers that the previous guys they caught were also from the Crescents, and they also tried to kill her. Nicephor, addressing the servants, says that, in any case, they now serve her, and asks if they understand this. The mercenaries, in order to save their lives, agreed with the girl to become her servants, and then she says that she gives them the first order. She tells them to tell them where their main headquarters is. The princess recalls that at the age of 5 she learned to escape from the palace. When they left the palace, the men showed her the gold coin store, in the depths of which they received the order. The man says that there is a workshop there, and when they knocked on the door, the seller opened it and claims that this place is not for children. The guy who worked in the store turns to the little lady and says that she should not come in, and at this time the servants pulled out their swords and scared him. At this time, the main character thought that they had already begun to earn their 500 gold. The servants, screaming, say that they may not be better at contract killings, but they fight excellently. Nicephor resolutely entered the room and saw men who, out of surprise, asked who let this little girl in there. The girl says that she has a question for them, and one of the men replies that they are terrible uncles and invite her to come when she comes off her mother's breast. The main character replies that she would love to, but her mother is already dead, and at that time she dealt with them with the help of magic, and then she caught one by the hair and asked if he knew the Crescents. But the man didn't answer her, and she thought that she had gone so far and there was no point. These men told her the following: the Crescent Moon was indeed looking for killers through intermediaries. However, even the intermediaries did not know who was behind the Crescent. After all, when the Crescent Moon contacted someone, they didn't send letters, and they didn't send people. They just walked past someone on the street and quietly passed on the order. Hearing this, the main character thought that everything was so confusingly confused, and in the end, even if she found more intermediaries, they still did not know the true face of the Crescent Moon. And she understands that it would be nice to see the Crescent directly come into contact with the intermediaries. Nicephor believes this is unlikely to be resolved so easily. At this time, there is a general meeting, which is held every 3 months and which all influential aristocrats, heads of families, and their heirs must attend, or aristocrats without their own possessions, but with great influence in the imperial castle. And in total, there are 333 people participating. Since the meeting began, all the talk was about the dragon princess. The aristocrat says that the princess is already 7 years old, but the crown prince's condition has not yet changed, and his wife suggests that the prophecy was wrong. The man claims that he believed that the dragon princess would help him overcome, and that perhaps she is simply not the real dragon princess. And he also thinks that a real dragon princess could definitely do this. However, there was a woman in the hall who defended the princess and claims that it is inappropriate to say so now, since the princess is only 7 years old. Another gentleman says that this girl was born with a great prophecy, but now she is still young, and therefore they should wait a little. And his father claims that an oath is not needed for this. The dark-haired aristocrat says it's impossible to ignore Roxborough's gathering of forces, And if they invade in 10 years, they will also say that the princess is still young and not strong enough. The gentleman says that after the meeting with the dragon princess, the crown prince of Roxborough did not appear in the empire, and it can be said that the child's pride was hurt. The elder says that if they are really planning something, then the prince needs to get rid of madness as soon as possible. An aristocrat with black hair claims that the princess, who is supposed to cure the prince's illness, does not even appear in public, thereby showing a complete lack of good manners. And he doesn't understand if she is a real dragon princess, then why would she behave like that? Hebert enters the meeting and says that this man with black hair is having a lot of fun, and then he suggests that he repeat his words, and he says that they were just discussing the condition of their younger sister. When the aristocrats heard this, they thought that he was immediately turning to you, and he was not polite. Hebert states that after their words, someone might think that she was specifically called the Dragon Princess, and then he says that if he thinks she's a fake, he offers to bring the real princess. And if he cannot do this, then let him shut his mouth. The aristocrat reports that he sees the Duke beside himself with anger, and he understands that he does not want such rumors but his family, of which there are few members left. Hebert replied that he could think what he wanted, and he didn't care. After a few minutes, the aristocrats thought about how no matter how many times they watched, it still amazed them. After all, the power of the sea dragon separates a part of consciousness and can give it a form without the body itself. The emperor announces that they are starting a general meeting right now. At this time, the main character was walking with the maid. But when the maid saw the shell, she picked it up and asked if it was beautiful. The little lady replied that she liked shells. The maid talks about how this shell is just like a little lady, and it is beautiful and so valuable, and then suddenly falls to earth. At this time, Nikifor thought that she did not understand at all how she became a maid in the imperial castle. And then she remembers that she said she was just lucky to get this job, and the little lady realizes that she should have been just as lucky. The main character thought that the meeting should have ended already. I wet my dress, and she wondered what the maid would do if she turned away for a second. The maid turns to the princess and says that she is all wet and might get sick. However, the girl calms her down and says that everything is fine since it's summer. The maid says that if she even gets a sniffle, Mrs. Adele will kill her. And then she takes the girl in her arms and offers to go quickly. The maid says that she will play with her again tomorrow. And then he asks if she spoke to the sea, which is very sweet. Nice4 reflects on the fact that she cannot say that she really spoke to the sea. And when they arrived at the palace, the prince saw the girl and said that she was all wet. The girl explains that they were playing at the seaside and then asks if the meeting is over yet. Xian reports that the little lady had better take a hot bath, and then he will tell the good news when she returns. Hearing this, the girl was surprised, because he would tell her about the morning and then inform her that she had gone. The main character reflects on the fact that, apparently, there is still a way to find Nathaniel. The little lady quickly washed herself and changed her clothes and then ran to the prince, and reminds him that he promised to tell everything. The prince says that Mr. Rasayan can also listen, and at this time the little lady thought that their relationship still left much to be desired. Sion invites the princess not to be surprised, since the ruins of sea giants have been discovered, and then he asks if she knows who the sea giants are. And at this time, the little lady thought that she had even met them before. When Atlantis still existed, they lived together in the sea, and one of them were sea giants. Usually they lived about 200 years, and the leaders lived up to 500. However, due to their long life, they practically did not leave offspring, and therefore washed out by the current time. And at this time, the girl thought that she felt strange because of this, because I didn't think that there could be anything left. The prince reports that, first of all, a huge path was found, and they also found stone pillars with unknown symbols. Hearing this, Heber assumed that it was a temple. Sion says he doesn't know because they don't have many records left, and believes that this is such an important discovery. Nicephorus thought that for modern people, Atlantis is something incredible, and if they find other magical items from that time, they will sell them for a huge amount. And, of course, many of them found by the imperial family belong to them. The girl suggests that there are objects that the imperial family did not find. and if you find 10 objects on which the spell of the sea giants is cast. And at this time, the prince says that he recommended the Riseyan family as assistants to the team for exploring the ruins. Nicefor asks the young master if she can join them, and he answers that he can. And at that time, the little lady thought that they would not find a translator like her, and so she will try to find and take all her things. Recently, the heroine thought that they could not send the third search group due to lack of money, and she understands that then she will earn them. A few days later, they went to the ruins as another team of explorers. The main character understands that on the map, the journey will take 10 days, but if you use the portal, the journey will last 5 minutes. Nicefor asks if they can get out of the carriage, and then offers to do so. However, the maid objects and says that it is still impossible, since she said that it is very dangerous. And at this time, the princess thought that they cared too much about her. The prince says that outside the castle there is a growing chance of an attack by robbers, and therefore it could be dangerous. However, the little lady says that she will go anyway, and Zion reports that he knew that she would say so. The young gentleman says that the ruins were discovered on the coast, where no human has set foot for a long time, and there are strong winds and rough seas, and are therefore considered an excellent place for an attack. At this time, the main character thought that he was right, since ordinary people would think so. Suddenly, the girl heard a voice from the nymph, who told her not to worry, since she had them. Sion says that he is sorry because he cannot go with them, and explains that he needs to guard the castle. And then he turns to the princess and says that she will have to tell him everything, and if something seems strange to her, then she should be careful. The young master explains that if there is anything dangerous, then she should just leave Master Riseyan and run away. At this time, the main character thought that she did not have such a thing, that because of her the palace sank or turned around in the sea, and nothing like this has ever happened before. Sitting in the carriage, the maid announces that they are leaving. And at this time, the girl began to wonder how many ruins had been discovered. And she doesn't understand whether 6 days and 5 nights are enough for her to see everything. Adele invites the princess to take a look since they have arrived, and when they got out of the carriage, they were met by the emperor and the count. The man reports that they were able to decipher one stone, and at this time the princess was surprised, because she did not understand how so many people could do so little. The emperor orders the transcript to be brought to him, and then he leaves and invites the princess to marry her. At this time, the girl thought that she would not follow him and went in the other direction. Adele asks the girl where she wants to go. The little lady explains that they need to take a good look at everything. After all, she understands that the servants may not discover something yet, and at this time I thought that there were treasures here that they had not yet found, and the little thief goes on a search. A few minutes later, the girl found herself in place and thought about what she had already given here. Adele saw the worried girl and asked if something hurt. However, she replied that everything was fine, and at that time she thought about what she remembered, since she had been in this place with Doom. The main character recalls that when she was still an empress, they visited a distant market of sea giants, because they needed to buy something. Doom said that there is also a market for sea giants near the capital, and he does not understand why they wandered so far. However, the empress replies that they have not walked for a long time, and her stomach hurts, and she thinks that she ate something wrong. The empress says that she is going for a walk, and therefore offers to see them in a couple of hours. And at this time, Doom asks why a person who has a stomach ache should go for a walk. But the empress did not answer, and he thought that he did not understand when she had time. At this time, the main character remembers that she hardly remembers what exactly she wanted to buy, but it was definitely an item enchanted by sea giants. Adele invites the princess to look at it. Nicephorus thought that among the artifacts belonging to giants, there were often items for protection, because in these times there were frequent attacks by giants, and first, she must find the place where there was a protection and decoration store. And if there is anything left, the girl will take it for herself. The main character understands that if she is lucky, she will find something truly valuable, and then she turns to the maid and invites her to come inside. However, she objects and says that this is a historical place, and she is afraid of breaking something. The little lady assures her that everything is fine as they will just watch. The guards stop them and tell them that they cannot go inside. The maid, screaming, asks how they dared to block the path of the great dragon princess, and then he says that they only want to look around, and therefore they should not interfere with them. The guards apologize for not recognizing Her Highness, and then they offer to pass through. When the little lady passed by, the guard thought that he saw a fairy, and then he says that he will need to brag about everything, and then he changes his mind, because he wants this moment to remain only for him. The maid looked at the wall and said that it was so huge and she didn't understand how this was possible, and she wonders if she will collapse. Suddenly, Adele saw statues that looked like turtles. Nicephorus explains that these things were originally installed on land, not on the seabed, and therefore nothing will be destroyed. The little lady reflects that it is time for her to get to work. And then she asks the nymphs if there are any magical objects there. The fish quickly inspected the territory and said that everything had already been taken. The girl realizes that thanks to the nymphs she can secretly find jewelry. And they also know something else, and this is the ability to absorb everything and store it inside. Tiny nymphs could store inside something as large as the puddle or pond in which they were born. But the girl had no idea that the first attempt would be such a failure, and she doesn't understand where she can find jewelry faster. Adele invites the princess to look at the fact that she discovered a secret staircase, and the bay wolves fell through there. And at this time, the main character thought that this was not a secret staircase, since it looked like an entrance for short guests. Nicephorus does not understand why the entrance is this way, because the giants are much larger. Adele asks how the maid is feeling, and Bavoki replies that everything is fine, and then apologizes for making them worry. Adele invites the maids to get up quickly and stop fooling around, and at this time the girl thought that she must have been injured during the fall. Well, when she saw that the maid stood up, there was not a single scratch on her. The main character looked at the entrance and thought that he was quite deep, and an ordinary person would easily get hurt. And then she looked at the maid and didn't notice that she had no injuries and looked great. The princess thought that she did not want to think about it anymore, since she had many other things to do. And then she thinks that the maid is just lucky today, and it's good that her maid wasn't hurt. Nicephorus says that she thinks there is nothing more to do in this place, and then asks where they should go next. And the little lady reflects on the fact that there is nothing in this place, and she does not understand why everything there is empty. And then she turns to her bracelet and asks him to do something because it brings good luck. The main character reports that they only go to one place and that's it. And then she ran away. Adele suggests that Bavoki take his time as she will look after the princess. However, the maid objects to her and offers to go together. The little lady noticed that all the doors were open except one. And at that time, she thought that maybe she would finally get lucky. Nicephorus points his finger at the door and invites the maids to enter this building. She also noticed that there were no guards. Adele asks the knight why this place is not guarded. He replies that this place cannot be entered, and so they were told not to guard him. Hearing this, the main character thought that there was definitely something there, and she could smell money. The girl thought that they could not enter because they could not open the door, and so she just needs to find another entrance. The main character saw another door and thought that she just needed to remove the cobwebs from it, and then she used magic to tidy up near the door. The maid in surprise asks the princess if there is something there. The girl replies that there is, but it doesn't open, and then Adele suggests that she try to open it. At this time, the main character thought that there was a curse on this place since it did not open, and therefore she needed to use her powers. The maid reports that she is at the door. Something is written, and the girl saw the inscription, "Use your powers, fight and win." Nicephorus believes that maybe she should fight the building. After opening the door, she felt its energy. The nymphs report that she needs more energy than the building, and this is the only way she can enter. And when the main character heard this, she thought that it would not be easy for her, and then she tells the maid to stop anyone who tries to interfere with her. The guards inform the princess that no one can go there and it is dangerous there and she could get hurt. And also the knight, screaming, says that she won't succeed either. Suddenly, Nicephorus opened the door and again tells the maid to stop the knights, and then she goes inside and screams joyfully about what she has found. The main character saw the treasures of the sea giants, among many jewels. She found one of the symbols of ancient Atlantis, and the sea giants were masters of fine work. The girl looked at the ring and thought that a spell could be cast on such beauty, and it was the second symbol of ancient Atlantis. Sea giants also like to do useless things and spells that could help take someone else's food, and the earrings tell only the wrong answers. Nicephorus believes that it does not matter what spell, since they are still ancient, and she will be able to sell them for more money. At this time, the emperor enters the room and says that he was looking for her, and then asks if she was going to take it all for herself. The princess responds by crying out that not at all, and then explains that she just wanted to look around before calling the others. His Majesty examined the room and said that there were a lot of all sorts of wonders in it. However, the girl objects and says that these are not just curiosities, but real treasures. And she found all this and asks if this is surprising. After all, only she could open this door. Nicephorus reports that she found all this, and it should all be hers. And then she says that if not, then she will simply close this door and never open it. The head of the expedition heard this and said that all the things that are here look like real cultural heritage, and this cannot be allowed. The Duke asks the Emperor if he will really allow her. The Emperor asks the girl what if he allows her to keep what she has in her hands, and then she says that she discovered an important place and therefore deserves it. At this time, the main character thought that His Majesty agreed to blackmail her. The magician, screaming, turns to the Emperor and says that all these things are simply incredibly important. His Majesty asks why they didn't come here themselves and find this place, but they were only able to decipher one stone pillar. Hearing this, the princess thought that it seemed strange to her that they could only decipher one pillar, because at first glance, they did not seem particularly complex. His Majesty says that the young dragon princess is doing well because she was the one who found this place. However, the Duke says that she knew in advance that there were treasures in this place, and she never talked about it. The Emperor talks about whether he thinks he's babbling all over the place about such important information. Hearing this, the Duke bowed his head and apologized. At this time, the little lady felt sorry for them and thought that she could prepare a reward for them. And then she says that in return, she will decipher 10 stone pillars. And she can also decipher them all in 5 days. Hearing this, the magicians were surprised and asked if she knew the language of the ancient sea giants. At this time, she thought that she was already 7 years old, so she could begin to show off her skills. The girl says that if they don't believe her, they can ask the great sage. And then they talk about how the princess can take anything. Mages understand that it is incredibly important for sages to decipher these stone pillars, and the same cannot be said about magicians. Nicephorus thought that she was also offended, since she could have gone a little further, and the nymphs could have found something else. The main character thought that when she sold it all, she could get a lot of money. With this money, she will be able to send this third expedition to find Nathaniel. The next day, the sage turns to the princess and says that they have not seen each other for a long time. And at this time, the lady realizes that after a long exchange of letters, she and Ingenios have become so close that she simply refers to him by his nickname. When the man took the girl in his arms, she said that he had even more wrinkles, and he says that this is all because he has not seen her for a long time and was sad for the princess. Knightsfor recalls that they met only a few weeks ago. The man replies that an old man like him wants to see her as often as possible until his death. Hearing this, the main character thought that he should not make her laugh, since he had at least another 50 years to live. The sage says that the princess does not like to beat around the bush and then suggests that they begin. The girl says that the wedding of Morpholine and Cactus gave 50 rings and 40 gems as a gift, and the sea giants gave out these gifts at the wedding to all the guests. The head of the study invites the girl to read well. When she saw this inscription, she said that a bad word was written. Hearing this, the chief thought that he now understood, since they thought it was strange. The main character asks if anyone is against her receiving the treasure, and the head of the research group invites her to take everything. And at this time, she thought that this was very excellent, since they officially belonged to her, and she understands that she will no longer have problems with the sale. Adele took an umbrella and said that it might rain soon. The sage says that it will be difficult to decipher if it rains, and therefore invites the princess to go and rest. The main character remembers that it also rained that day, and she was late because she was looking for something, and then she said that Caorton would like it. The princess thought that there was no difference, that it had rained that day and she was only in vain remembering it. And then she encourages herself, because stop frowning because such a face does not suit a little girl at all. The emperor turns to the girl and says that at that age it would be better for her to jump in puddles. Heard this little lady doesn't understand why Khartan suddenly spoke to her. After all, she understands that his increased interest may be dangerous for her. After all, before they communicated only thanks to Zion. Nicephorus tells the emperor that she does not want to and invites him to do it himself. He crouches down next to the girl and says that he doesn't think that playing in a puddle is for him, and he heard that she hired funny guys. Hearing this, the main character thought that he was talking about the Assassin's Guild. His Majesty says that he understood all this in order to find Nathaniel, and then he says that he will definitely send a third search party. The main character says that he is definitely alive, and she knows this thanks to the brooch, and therefore he will definitely be found. The emperor reports that he heard about her from Mr. Risayan and asks when she even managed to find her. The princess replies that she made it herself and gave it to him just in case. Hearing this, the emperor says that she has real talent. Khartan reports that they were last seen in the polar region, but then they seemed to disappear. And the girl says that she could easily find him if she only went there. And at this time she thought about why the sea giants evaporated. Nathaniel asks His Majesty if they searched the seabed, and if they disappeared without a trace, then perhaps they fell down, and therefore they can be at the bottom. His Majesty replies that, for starters, people will die if they end up on the seabed, because they cannot breathe underwater. And then she reports that there were no signs of the ship crashing, and therefore she needn't worry. The main character reflects on the fact that even their ancestors could not breathe underwater, and only she can do this, and no one from the century in which she lived remained. The servant informs His Majesty that the cardinal has arrived from La Meurthe, and Khartan reports that he's already leaving. The princess suggests that he take his jacket, since he is such a slob and he should always dress neatly. His Majesty turns to the princess and says that only she can tell the temperature that he is a slob. But he looked at the girl. He reports that she is still bored and offers to go together to a meeting with the cardinal. Nicephorus saw that the rain suddenly stopped, and then she saw the boy, who greeted the emperor and also thanked him for his assistance. At this time, the main character thought that the priest from La Meurthe was somehow very similar to Duma, and she doesn't understand where the cardinal is. Assistant informs the girl that this is the cardinal, who once appeared, and despite his 11 years, he has excellent skills. And he was able to stop the rains and made the sun shine again. The princess does not understand how such a small boy can change the weather. The emperor calls on the services and says that they can return to work. The cardinal turns to the girl and says that he welcomes her. At this time, the main character thought that if he said one more word, he would be finished. The boy says that his name is Helio, and he is from La Meurthe, and he is sincerely glad for their personal meeting with the dragon princess, and he asks if the lady wants some candy. At this time, the princess thought that she did not understand why he looked so much like Doom. Suddenly, the girl felt that someone took her in his arms, and then she screams that she is in pain and she asked him to control the power. His Highness replies that this is the only way she herself will understand when she becomes stronger, and the girl, screaming, tells him to give him the starfish elixir. He replies that he will give it to her. She claims he doesn't know what it is. The emperor announces that he will send for him as soon as they return to the castle, and then says that she has had enough and it is time to return. The princess asks if he's pushing her back and then says it's too much. Khartan holds the girl on his shoulder and says that if she is finished with her work, she can return soon, since he still needs to supervise the excavations. And then he lets her go to the floor and asks her not to be friends with these suspicious guys. Nathaniel asks why it matters to him if she is friends with them or not. Helio. The dragon princess asks what her name is. And at this time, the girl thought that he did not say anything even after these words, and then answered that she was Nicephor Risayan. The cardinal says that the lady can simply call him Helio. The main character is thinking about having the skills to become a cardinal at such a young age, and then the girl asks if he is not busy, if he can go with her. After this, the princess and Helio visited several places, and then she realized that he was very poorly oriented. After all, she looked for him 4 times. The girl couldn't stand it and, screaming, asks if he can't find the way, then why he came unaccompanied. The boy explains that the Holy Father told him that he himself must learn to navigate, and at this time the main character does not understand why he seems so harmless to her. and it was stupid to consider him similar to Doom. Helios talks about how the princess had to walk longer because of him, and then asks if she wants a blessing to get rid of fatigue. I heard this girl asking how he can. The guy replies that this is his little trick, and then says that Lady Nycfor's protection will arrive. At this time, the girl felt that she did not feel tired at all, and then she thanked him and offered to be friends with him. And at that time, I thought that I wanted to receive blessings more often. Helios says that her body is designed so that it receives blessings well, and the girl asks if there might be people who don't take it well. The boy explains that it's different for everyone, but he usually can't give a blessing to members of the imperial family because they have rejection. Nicephorus suggests that this may be due to the energy of the sea, because the power of the sea dragon that the imperial family possesses causes their bodies to be rejected. And perhaps that is why they cannot receive the blessing. The main character understands that this is all because of this scoundrel Caortan. Helio turns to the princess and says that he is very sorry, but it's time for him to return. And he explains that he cannot leave the temple for a long time, and since evening has come, he needs to leave. The boy says that if the princess needs him, she can call him at any time, and as a friend, he will be happy to help her. Nicephor suggests returning to the loop. In the evening, sitting near the fire, the girl thought that he was calling her Zion, and then she ran to her tent and said that she was surprised every time she saw him, and she didn't understand how the prince could do it, and that made her even jealous. The prince explains that she can do this too when she grows up, and then asks if she is doing well. The princess reports that she has a new friend, and her new friend gave her a blessing so that she could recover, and the lady says that she will introduce them later. Zion says that he will be glad to meet you. The girl asks if there were any new attacks while she was not around. He explains that he was in resonance for a long time, and therefore everything is fine. And then he says that she will have a hard time when she returns. Nicephor is sure that everything is fine, since it will end with one touch, and besides, it is Caortan who is to blame for the fact that Zion received a curse, and the girl thought that she needed to try to reduce his suffering. Suddenly, the prince is missing, and little no lady doesn't understand what happened and asks about it, and then he screams for his highness to be found. Adele reports that a strange reaction suddenly came from the stone column, and so she was told to bring the princess as soon as possible. And then he says that the great sage went there first. At this time, the main character thought that then she should go there with Hybert. Princip asks if they will go together, and he also joins them. And when they came to the column, their torches went out, and the knights say that nothing is visible. The prince says that he will help them light the torches and then return. At this time, the girl thought that the object that caused the commotion had extinguished the torches, and then she asks the nymphs if they saw anything. The nymphs say that there are mercenaries who have returned again. At this time, the main character thought that, thank God, everything was fine with Hybert and Adele. Suddenly, they heard a cry for help, and the princess remembered that she had forgotten about Bovoki. Nicephorus asks the nymphs if they can see anything. They answer that nothing is visible, and she doesn't understand where Bavoka's voice was heard from then. Suddenly, she saw a frightened maid, who reported that she was very scared, and at that time she thought that it was good that she was not injured. And then he invites his brother to quickly go to the site of the explosion. The main character believes that the closer they get, the stronger the smell of blood, and she wonders what happened there. When they came to the place, they saw a sage on the ground, and they understand that when the great sage examined the tablet, an explosion suddenly occurred. At this time, the girl thought that to help Inga, she needed to destroy the tablet. And when the princess touched the wall, she saw an inscription that the great empress of Atlantis was the eternal friend of the sea giants. And at that very moment, anyone who touches this stone will be cursed, and only she will not be cursed. It was written on the wall that she must build the ship of Atlantis and find them in the permafrost on the snow-white land, where tears turn into pieces of ice, and they are waiting for her there. Nicephorus thought that the sea giants were still alive, and they were waiting for her. But the girl understands that she first needs to remove the curse from the sage. The magician tells the princess not to approach, as the curse may spread. However, the girl says that Inga is her friend, and therefore she cannot leave him to die, and she needs to lift the curse. Xion asks Nika if everything is okay, and if she can break the curse. And at this time, the main character thought that she could. Well, when she used her magic, she was completely tired and then fell to the ground. Her brother came up to her and said that she was fine because she just fell asleep. The emperor reports that the great sage is breathing and offers to take him to the infirmary. The next day, Beowulfs cry out that his majesty has woken up, and Adele approached the girl and greeted her. The maid cries and says that, thank God she woke up. However, the little lady doesn't understand why she is crying and asks about it. Adele says that she can't even imagine how worried she was and if something happened to her. The princess says that she does not understand that this could happen to her, and then assures that everything is fine with her. And she wonders what happened to the great sage. The maid replies that he is fine and that he woke up about 3 hours ago and came to meet her. Adele asks if her mistress is hungry and then says that she will quickly prepare her breakfast. At this time, the main character thought that she was sorry that she had made so many people worry, but she felt so good after the power release for the first time in a long time. The little lady became interested in the tablet that wounded Inga. It was probably destroyed, and there was definitely a message on it from the sea giants addressed to her. And they seemed to be sure that she would see that tablet, and she doesn't understand how they knew. Nicephorus thought that she would personally know when to meet them, and in order to meet the sea giants, she must build a ship of Atlantis and go to where they live to the pole where Nathaniel disappeared. The next day, Adele screams and says that she must return to the palace as quickly as possible, and then he claims that it is too dangerous for Her Majesty, because she needs to be examined by her personal doctor. At this time, the main character realizes that she feels that her body is healthy, but it does not listen to her. And then she agrees and says that she doesn't care because she needs to meet Zion. The maid says that she will immediately begin preparations for departure. The expedition group thanks Her Highness for helping them, and if not for her, they would have lost the great sage. And therefore the great sage is alive thanks to her. Nicephor claims that she did what she had to do. The sage says that, as expected, Her Majesty is very modest. The sage turns to the girl and says that he wants to thank her from the bottom of his heart, and then explains that he is afraid to die, even though he is already quite old. The princess says that she doesn't want to lose Inga either, and then you assure him that he should live another 50 years. The little lady says that if he really wants to thank her, he can help her with something, and then she asks him to help her with influence in the magic tower. The sage does not understand how he can help the girl and then asks about it. The little lady whispered something in his ear, and then he agreed to help her. When the princess drove to the palace, she first wanted to meet Zion, because he was very worried about her, and it was the first time she had been separated from him for so long. As the girl ran along the corridor, she thought that Zion's energy was so fickle. Suddenly, the girl was met by the prince's assistant and was surprised as he saw her. The princess explains that Zion does not know that she has arrived and therefore wants to scare him. When she opened the door, the prince says that he ordered not to let anyone in, and then he asks if he's tired of living. At this time, Nicephor thought that it was the first time she saw him like this, and it turns out that he is very serious when he works. The young master saw Nikki, was very happy, and asked when she returned, and then he says that according to the official schedule, it was supposed to strike tomorrow. The girl explains that she arrived early because she missed him. The prince talks about how he will tell her to bring food, and then asks her to wait. He also wonders if she got what she wanted from those ruins. Nicephor shows the prince the ring and says that it is a gift for him, and this is the secret that she spoke about, and therefore gives the ring only to him. The princess suggests trying to use the power on him, and then explains that this is a relic of the sea giants, and there is an interesting spell on it that will make the person next to him bald. Zion says what he uses next to His Majesty, and then they smile, and he thanks the girl for the gift and says that he will keep it carefully. The prince says that he does not understand what the smell is. I heard this girl asking what she smells like, and then he claims that someone left their scent on her, and he wonders who it is. The servant reports that they have brought some snacks, and at this time the main character says that this dish looks very tasty. The young gentleman asks who the new friend is, and the lady replies that his name is Helio and the cardinal of the Church of La Merta. Nicephorus says that he ordered the rain to stop and the weather immediately cleared up, and then she asks the prince if he knows how to do this. Zion reports that cardinals have power over certain things, and he must be able to control the rain. And at this time, the main character thought that Helio was more capable than she thought, and it's good that she became friends with him. The prince thinks she was having fun with a new friend named Helio, The princess explains that she took them for a walk to different places, and he even used a blessing on her. And at that time, she thought that Nathaniel would also like to listen to stories about the ruins, and she will definitely find her brother. After some time, the young master reflects on how he dared to leave his mark on something that does not belong to him, and he doesn't understand how long the Church of La Merta allows itself to do this. Zion too angry to just leave it like that. And at that moment when he had the first resonance and Nicephorus, the desire to kill that he constantly felt subsided. And so he felt alive for the first time. The prince thought that Helio left his disgusting smell on Nikki because he wanted to take her away from him. The prince ordered his servants to destroy the temple. The mercenary asks the believers whether to kill them. The young master claims that Nikki will not like it, and then he proposes to simply demolish the temple and destroy those things that bring profit from donations, and they must also make sure that no one gets hurt. Zion doesn't understand what he should do because even next to her he still goes crazy. At this time, Helio reports that he has returned, and the gentleman with red hair asks if he met the dragon princess. In the central temple of La Merta there is a feeling called God. He took a piece of himself and created it Helio. The boy reports that he met the dragon princess, and it says that he's not sure if she's who he hopes she is. At this time, Helios thought that he would read his thoughts, since he felt that he was created only out of necessity. And this man didn't love him. The boy remembers that he was happy when the girl said that she would be his friend. Helios says that he definitely left us a trace from God to the princess, and it seems that she did not notice it. And she gave it to him as a friend. The man asks if he got along well with this dragon, and at that time, the boy thought that he would not escape from here until the very end of his life. At this time, the aristocrats are talking about how Her Majesty saved the life of the great sage, and they don't understand how such a young girl did such a big task. They also suggest that Her Majesty has special abilities, nice for capabilities, abilities and achievements that are right now can be placed in a secret archive, and she should be patient until public opinion takes root. The main character does not understand what to do until then. After all, Zion should have already arrived. When the girl opened the door, she saw the prince's assistant, who reported that His Majesty had not yet risen. Hearing this, the girl thought that perhaps he was sick and she was worried. After all, he had never slept for so long. The princess says that she will go to Zion and invites the servant not to worry so much. And at that time, she thought that it might also be because of the obsidian ring that she gave him yesterday. Nice for. When she entered the prince's room, she saw that he was lying on the bed, and when she came closer, she touched his face and realized that he had a fever. The girl asks what the doctor said, and she wonders if he took the medicine. And then she claims he felt sick because he was working late again. His Majesty reports that he is fine and then explains that he wanted to come and see her. But it turned out that she herself came to him. The main character assures him that she will come until he gets better, and he should not doubt it. And then he says that he can't work today. Zion says he has some work left to complete, and the little lady says that she will do all this for him. And at that time I thought that she was an empress in a past life and doesn't do business simply because she doesn't want to. Nicephore asks the young master if she should call a servant. He reveals that he gave them the day off as soon as he felt he had a fever. Hearing this, the girl thought that he did not want to show them his weakness, and only she sees him like this and therefore must protect him. The little lady asks if there are things that need to be done or on the table. The prince replied that all the papers were on the table, and then the girl said that she would take care of them. After a while, the main character asks what kind of papers these are. The young master explains that this is connected with the New Year's party, and at this time the little lady understands that he must participate in such events. The main character thought that instead of these boring parties, it would be 100 times more useful to just look at the sea. Nicephore asks the prince if he can have a party outdoors this time, and spend it not indoors, but on the sea. And you can ride a boat, since New Year is the summer season. Xian says he's interested, and then asks if Nikki wants to write the directions himself. The princess agrees with him, and at that time thought that she would write everything down to the smallest detail. Sitting at work, the princess fell asleep, and then the young master took her in his arms and said that she could still sleep. And she herself is so small and always tries to protect him. The prince put the girl on his bed and thought that she was beautiful. The young master muses that he's sorry he pretended to be sick and forced Nikki to work, but she'll be worried if she finds out about the boar's destruction, and it would be great to work with her every day. Zion looks at the work that the princess did and thought about the documents you have on top, and they are the most important, but something is missing, and Nikki expects so much from this banquet. The prince took the seal and thought that it was used on emergency orders, and then he put it on the documents on which the girl worked. Sitting on the bed next to the girl, the prince thought that thanks to her he was now having new dreams, and he looks at her sleeping face and thinks about what she is dreaming about now, and even that they will get married one day. The young master understands that he will have to wait a very long time since the princess is still a child. 3 days later, the emperor held a special meeting to honor the dragon princess's contribution to the ruins. He says that the dragon princess has made a great contribution to the development of the state and therefore deserves a reward. The magician reports that the princess saved the life of the great sage, and therefore the sage's tower will never forget her feat. Aristocrats say that the young dragon princess assessed the situation faster than one or the other, and she is a very wise and noble person. The emperor says that he wants to give her a reward. However, the girl objects and says that her reward will be entry into the secret library, and then asks what her merits are. The girl believes that she saved the great sage, discovered a bunch of cultural treasures, and quickly translated the tablets. And then he claims that this will be enough to pass. The duke turns to the girl and asks if she understands what she is talking about. Hearing this girl thought, what kind of idiot dares to ask her such questions, and then she says that the documents she is looking for are there. The duke invites the lady to tell her what the documents are, and then claims that it will be easier if he himself finds them and brings them to her. At this time, the princess thought that she did not like him at first sight. The emperor heard this and thought that he would cover for her. She just had to start a fuss. Nicephorus says that this is none of his business. The man says that, as expected, her grace knows no bounds, and she is so noble and majestic. The man asks the lady to repeat what she just said, and she says that she didn't dress him wisely. Hearing this, he says that he has been waiting 10 years for someone to say this. The emperor proposes to consider this issue again, and then asks if everyone agrees with the duke. Aristocrats say that for the princess's merits, in addition to access to the secret library, she is entitled to other rewards, and then they offer to choose the one who will go with the princess to the library. The main character looked at the count and thought that he was planning something, and she would like to know what he was thinking. His Majesty announces that at this meeting he declares closed and the secret library will be opened right now. Hearing this, Nicephor thought that she would finally see the notes left by Keortan. The girl asks the prince when she can come in. He explains that they need to wait for the arrival of 5 witnesses from noble families and 1 each from wizards and sages. After all, even the emperor himself cannot enter without them. The main character thought that she needed to look around while they were waiting, and she didn't understand what was so great there that she couldn't go there alone. The princess touched the pillar and thought that it was made from the ribs of whales with hexagonal tails, and they were difficult to catch because they are very dangerous. Nicephor wonders if Doom helped build this library, and she doesn't understand why she thinks about them so often lately. When the little lady saw the emperor, she asked if they could come in now, and he invites witnesses to sign, and then he turns to the girl and says that there is very little left, and she must be patient. When they entered the library, the princess saw that it was very ancient, and everything was perfectly preserved. And this is probably because of the whale bones. Keortan reports that the records of the first emperor are located elsewhere. Hearing this, the girl went looking, and in a few minutes she found the diary of the first emperor. The prince announces that he will help Nikki since this book can only be pulled out by authorized members of the imperial family. And when he took out the book, he says that she can take her time and read, and he will not disturb her. Opening the book, the girl thought that this was really the Keortan she knew. After all, there are dots at the end of sentences and curved handwriting, and this is something she has seen hundreds of times in documents. The main character thought that she had a strange feeling from the fact that she was again reading what he wrote, and it's probably because she wants to believe that he wouldn't hand her over. Nicephorus wonders if he wanted to become emperor so badly, and so he assumes that he should have just asked her about it, and she would gladly give in to him. At this time, the main character reads that he should calm down, since the ruler must show self-control. One thought that she needed to read what was written about. The girl reads that a month after the founding of the state, everything is going well. The people who needed faith easily accepted the new religion, but they still know the person who is still deep in their heart, and they still have not forgotten about the sea goddess. At this time, the main character thought that the Lemurt religion was founded by Kyorten, and she doesn't understand what kind of goddess of the sea she is and doesn't remember such a religion. Nicephorus thought that she needed to quickly go to the main temple of Lemurt. Suddenly, the girl saw her face on the binding, and she doesn't understand why it should be coordinated like that. And it would be better if he then just drew the half of the face. And then she saw that it was written that their goddess, whom they should always remember and glorify, is Tarasa, the goddess of the sea. At this time, the princess thought that he had sealed her, although he considered her a deity and doomed her to suffering. The main character thought that the diary did not say that Kyorten lived a happy life. And in the diary, only his pain remained. Nicephor reads that a year after the founding of the state, his body is in poor condition and his blood either cools down or boils again. And he cannot describe this pain, as if his body is falling apart and coming back together again, and his children may have to endure this as he gradually loses his composure. Kyorten understands what he has done. Having reached this point, there is no turning back, since the sin that he must endure is the payment for his stupidity, which he left for later again, and he must endure it all. The princess read the penultimate page of the diary and thought that there were no more documents connecting her and Kyorten. The main character, having read the diary, thought that he, as always, stopped mid-sentence. And in the end, the only thing he could achieve was that she was reborn again in this generation. The girl understands why he sealed her for 1,000 years, and he did not write why he did this. But she wonders why there is nothing in this diary about his friend Doom, and Kyorten handed it over because of Doom. The princess believes that there must be something more in the diary, and this cannot be all. Suddenly, the main character saw a page that was thicker than the rest, and she thought they were glued together. And she also remembers that this is a method that Atlantis would use to hide something important. Nicephor thought that if you carefully wet the edges of this page and stick it out, you could read what the author wanted to hide. The main character recalls that when the seal was removed and she woke up in the guise of a child, the people she knew were already dead, and everything that was dear to her disappeared, and wake up alone in the future and live with the memories of the past. The girl remembers how lonely she was, and she couldn't even imagine that she could withstand this deep loneliness. Suddenly, the girl heard the prince asking her if she was okay. The princess replies that she will read a little more, and at that time she thought that Zion is so kind, and he doesn't even try to find out anything. At this time, Nicephor opened the glued pages and saw a sign, and she does not understand what it means. But she understands that it was Doom who wrote this note, and she reflects on the fact that he left something behind. The main character does not understand how she will interpret this. After all, she does not know what we are talking about since only some numbers are written. The emperor, who saw the girl on the floor and asks why she behaves this way, and at that time I thought that she had found what she was looking for because, apparently, because of this she behaves this way. His Majesty approaches the girl and says that she has enough lying on the floor and invites her to get up. At this time, the girl shows him the numbers, and he does not understand what numbers we are talking about. And then he says that in any case, it's high time they left and suggests getting ready. Nicephor thinks that they conspired among themselves and betrayed her, and she does not understand why Kyorten hid this note. And she was reborn after 1,000 years as a dragon princess, and that was that. The prince asks the girl if she found out everything she needed, and at this time the girl thought that she did not understand who the first dragon princess was. After all, the diary only wrote about the suffering of Kyorten. When the princess came to her room, everything was very planned, and the servants do not understand what happened to her. At this time, the main character is thinking about the numbers that were in the records and which she looked at, because the dates were written in Kyorten's diary, and she suggests that it may not even be related to his diary. The girl thought that she needed to remember the notes read to her that were connected with Kyorten and Atlantis. The princess remembers that the sea was destroyed because of his sins. Since a simple person, how can he not know this? The sin has already been committed and cannot be corrected. Nicephorus read that Atlantis, with all its rich culture, disappeared underwater, and only 2 apostles remained alive. And at this time she thought that perhaps doom meant the number of survivors. and she understands that the numbers were wrong because they were not the only ones who survived. The main character remembers the prince and thought that he reminds her of someone. After all, Roxborough's ancestors could also be Atlanteans, and perhaps the first dragon princess was from Atlantis, and they say that she cured the madness of the first emperor, and she must be no ordinary person. The girl believes that Caortan was not cursed by the sea dragon if he himself imposed the curse on himself and his descendants, and this means that the dragon princess definitely used the magic of Atlantis to cure him. The main character reflects on the fact that, most likely, the Rizian family was created so that someone not from the imperial family could lift the curse from his descendants, and that someone was probably her, because Caortan hoped that she would be the one to lift the curse. And he couldn't imagine how complex and intricate the plan was just because of the fact that Doom loved. The girl understands that there must be some other reason, and she remembered that until the age of 15, you cannot take an oath. And at that time, I thought that I still have to wait for so long, and it's 7 long years. Nicefor heard that the servants were arguing about who should approach her, and she thought that they had completely lost their fear. The servant turns to Her Majesty and offers to try the cake, and then he explains that he just bought it with his salary. The princess thanks him and then asks him if he is dear. However, he suggests that she try faster, and then the girl took a piece and thought that it was very tasty. And then she thinks that she has learned a lot, and that is enough. Nicefor remembered the words of the servant, who said that he bought the cake with his salary and thought that she should slowly start earning money. The main character says that she will earn money. Hearing this, Heber asks why she suddenly wanted to do something like this, and he also wonders how she is going to make money. At this time, the girl thought that she had come to this decision after much thought, and he didn't even understand it. The girl shows her jewelry, which she found in the ruins, and says that when she sells it, she will earn money, and she doesn't understand what to sell first. After all, she cannot sell them all at once. The brother claims that these jewels may hold great cultural significance. The little lady replies that she doesn't care since the emperor allowed her to keep it. At this time, I thought that she had smuggled most of these things in secret. Nicefor claims that she needs money and as much money as possible, which she could do with as she wants. The girl says that she will spend it on building a ship and then hire people who will go with her to the Arctic. Hyber asks his sister if she is going to personally go look for Nathaniel, and she replies that since Hibby is busy, that's why she will go in person and check whether the sea giants are really alive. The young master reports that it will take years to build a large ship, and the girl says that this is great, since she will already have grown up by this time. The brother says that she will need about 100 billion, and the little lady offers to sell the jewelry for as much as possible. Hebert reports that he will then need to hold an auction, and he understands that an auction won't be enough to find something that will attract a lot of attention. At this time, the main character thought that it would be easy, since she would get anything from the Emperor Great Sage and the Lord of the Magic Tower. A few days later, the Tower of the Sages is the sacred abode of all types of learning, research, and philosophy. Scientists associated with the tower are focused on their own research, but they have a common interest, and this is the country of Atlantis, which existed in ancient times. The sages are jealous of the dragon princess's ability to understand the language of the ancient giants, and some sages even treat it with distrust. A man in a green robe reports that the dragon princess is selling artifacts of sea giants, and at the same time, those who devoted themselves to magic gathered in the magic tower. And also there are those who are busy with constant debate, and this is an interest in magic and ancient Atlantis. The magic of Atlantis is very rare in their time, and some magicians are extremely interested in the ancestor of the dragon princess Nicefor Rizian. The magicians say among themselves that they need to save money and buy what the princess is selling, and they also dream of buying artifacts of sea giants. The head of the Department of Historical Preservation of the Imperial Palace, when he learned that the dragon princess also wanted to sell cultural artifacts at auction, he fainted from shock. The magician says that it is better for them to go to the auction and buy everything, since they have a large budget. And another magician reports that applications for using the budget are already ready, and employees have already submitted applications for using the budget. After some time, the long-awaited day of the auction arrived, and at that time the main character felt very excited, because for the sake of this day she received things from the Emperor Great Sage and the Lord of the Magic Tower. The girl understands that she will receive a 5% commission from the sales of these items. Suddenly, the prince takes the little lady in his arms and invites her to come with him. When the girl saw her brother, she asked how many guests had come. He replies that a lot has come, and if interested, he can see it in person. The main character took Zion by the hand and offered to watch it together. When she looked behind the curtains, she saw many people. The prince says that a lot of people came from the Tower of Sages and the Magic Tower, and there are also a lot from the Historical Preservation Department. The little lady reports that people from other countries have come here, and at that time she thought that she could raise the required amount. Hebert announces that the auction will begin soon, and then takes the girl away so that she no longer peeps, and he invites her to quickly go to her place. Nicefor says that she could have simply told her brother how many people had come, and she would still have seen them soon. Suddenly, the main character saw Helio, and she does not understand what he is doing there. And at that time, I thought that she still wanted to go and see him. The girl looks at the guy and doesn't understand how she can approach him, and whether only Helio can get him out of there. At this time, the prince saw an interested girl and asked where she was looking like that. Hearing this, the main character thought that Zion did not like Helio. Nicefor replies that she is not looking at anything and then says that the auction begins. The main character looked at the men who were sitting, and she did not understand why they came if they did nothing. She wonders if they will sit like this until the end. Helio noticed the girl, and in response she smiled at him and waved her hand. Xian asks the princess if she is hungry, and then reveals that he was told that they had prepared a snack, and he asks if she will be. The girl answers that she wants to eat, and at this time, she thought that she didn't even have breakfast. The prince took the meat and offers to feed the girl. The surprised lady talks about him being the crown prince, and then asks if he can feed her like that. His Majesty talks about what he did so often in the palace. However, the girl assures that they are not in the palace now. But still she agrees, and he feeds her. And at this time, the main character thought that the prince was polite and caring towards her, and that he was also handsome, cool, and even sweet. And he will be the perfect husband, and she wonders how many girls will run after him when he grows up. Xian looked at the little lady and asked what she was thinking so deeply about. She replies that she thinks about the luck of the one who marries him. The prince does not understand why she should marry someone else, and then says that he has a princess for this. Nicefor announces that the crown prince and the dragon princess should be related, but they do not have to marry, and he must find someone he loves. Hearing this, the prince became sad, and the girl thought that she had done something wrong. And she reflects on the fact that maybe she made him feel abandoned, and she doesn't understand how she can fix it. Helio approaches them and greets His Highness and the princess. The prince warily asks what the clergy of the fallen religion needed. And then he says, who would have thought that those who should pray, sweating in their temple, would come to ordinary people? The blonde boy replies that it is God's blessing, and they came because they heard there would be a special item at the auction. At this time, the main character does not understand what kind of atmosphere it is, and Zion said that some kind of smell clung to her, and for this, His Highness reports that he recently sent a gift to La Mer and then asks if they received it. Helios replies that this has left many innocent believers homeless. Zion claims that he would do well to learn humility from them. However, the fair-haired boy objects and says that believers are not sinners. When the main character heard this, she thought that she needed to try them on. And then she says that she is glad to see Helio. The girl says that she was told that there was some kind of smell left on her then, and she asks if he knows what it is. The blonde boy explains that it was an accident, and it seems that the smell remained due to the fact that he put a blessing on her with blood, and that's why she was uncomfortable. Nicefor. I hear this and says that this is not on purpose, and therefore she understands him. And then he says that she will talk to him separately. After some time, the prince informs Nikki that the total amount of the auction has already reached 10 billion. When the main character heard this, she thought that with this money, she could find her brother Nathaniel. Hebert tells his sister that it's time to give the speech he was talking about. And then he says that before continuing, they will give the floor to the dragon princess, thanks to whom today's auction took place. Nathaniel thanks their aristocrat for coming today, and then she says her name and says the reason why she arranged this auction. The girl reports that she will talk about this for the first time, and instead of sending a third search ship to the Arctic, she wants to build a warship herself. The main character reports that she will find sea giants who live somewhere in the Arctic, and will find missing people through them, and then she asks if there is anyone in the room who wants to go with her. But suddenly her brother takes the microphone from her and says that he will answer their questions if they have any. At this time, the girl thought that she had told everything, and now it was Heberg's turn, and she would like him to finish, no matter what beautiful words. 5 days later, the emperor says that he regrets not seeing it with his own eyes, because he heard what they say. It was very impressive. Nathaniel explains to His Highness that they are exaggerating everything, and he asks if she is going to build a ship with this huge money. The main character replies that her brother has already found a shipbuilding company, and she reports that she is going to recreate the ancient ship of Atlantis. The warships of Atlantis were gracefully strong and fast, and there is one feature by which such a ship can be immediately identified, and this is a figurehead made in the shape of a man. At this time, the princess was thinking about who she should hang on her ship, Heber or Zion. His Majesty asks the princess if she knows what happened to Zion that day at the auction. Nicefor replies that she knows nothing, and she was informed that he spoke for a very long time with the cardinal from Lemert. And if he knows, then why is he asking her? At this time, the main character thought that Siona's Helio had a fight, and she doesn't want to talk about it. The emperor says that the prince is very depressed these days, and he is working a lot. The girl says that's why he's humming to himself here. His Majesty explains that she must understand him correctly, since he took him away because he wanted to learn to work, and he did not force him. The girl thought that after the auction, Zion never came to the Mother of Pearl Palace, and it's probably because he's so busy. Coyorton says that the prince is most likely offended by something, and he remembers how he came to the Mother of Pearl Palace every day, and how busy he was. Nicefor says that the prince is probably just very busy, because the New Year's banquet is coming soon. His Majesty says that this time everyone at the banquet will be wearing masks, and therefore he probably has a lot to do. Hearing this, the main character thought about how he could talk like that, as if this was not his job at all. And probably the emperor was not only having fun. The princess reflects that she likes the orange light and will need to make a mask of the same color. She also needs to order something before the New Year's banquet. The girl says that she wants to order something, but without Jan and Hibby knowing about it. And then she told the emperor exactly what. His Highness wrote it down and says that he will order it to be prepared as soon as possible. A few days later, on the New Year's banquet day, the main character looked at the jewelry and thought that at first she wanted to make it as a piercing, because some people pierce their ears because of this. Adele says that the weather is very good today, and then asks if her mistress will go on a boat ride. The main character claims that only she will be on the ship. The maid heard this and said in surprise that it was dangerous, and the little lady tells her not to worry, and then explains that she will call Zion if she is in danger. And at that time, I thought that then he would definitely not be able to avoid her. The maid has done her mistress's hair and says that everything is ready, and then he tells her to be careful. The count says that he came to see off Her Highness, see him on the princess call his name, and he says he's honored that she remembers his name. Nicefor tells the master to give her a mask, and then asks what's wrong with his hair color. Lucas explains that this color has become fashionable lately, and young girls want to be like her, and young guys want to be like Mr. Nathaniel, and that's why this color is popular. The Count says that the color was developed by a senior mage of the Magic Tower named Jackalot. At this time, the main character thought that this idiot still couldn't get rid of her. Lucas asks Her Highness if she knew about this, and he explains that he thought that she did not change her hair color, since she already knew that many people now wear the same color. And she says that now on the bank most of the young girls have the same hair color as hers. Hearing this, the main character thought that everything was lost, because she did not understand how Zion recognized her then. At the banquet, the young ladies talk about how everyone has the same hair color, and they are worried that they won't be able to recognize the princess if she stands right in front of them. The girl with green hair says that according to rumors, the princess is very beautiful and sweet, and she will become a real beauty when she grows up. But the other one claims that Countess Betelgeuse is also very beautiful, and she is her only daughter of the Prime Minister with a goatee. And this year she turned 9 years old, but she has already gathered friends around her, and when she grows up, she will definitely go far. Nicefor looked at the young girls and thought that they looked like turtles who went out to sunbathe in the sun. And then she decided to seek Zion. Suddenly, a girl with green hair approaches her and asks her what her name is, and the main character wonders why she needs to know this. And at that time, I thought that she didn't like the way she was looking at her. The princess says that her name is Tarasa. Hearing this, the lady says that her name is unusual, and this is the first time she has heard such a thing. The girl with green hair says that she thinks that this is the lady's first time at such an event, and therefore invites the main character to go with her. And another girl reports that they will laugh at her if she walks alone. Lady with green hair says her name is Lasayana Betelgeuse, and then asks what Tarasa's last name is. The princess says that she cannot say the last name because they are out of town. And at that time, I thought that little children are very cute. Lasayana announces that dancing will begin soon, and usually at parties where children may participate, the very first ones to dance are the little ladies and gentlemen. And then he invites the main character to see if there is anyone she wants to dance with. And then she claims that she needs to act smart, otherwise she will have to dance with just anyone. Her friend says that. Her friend says that Tarasa will not be able to attend parties often until she officially makes her debut in society and therefore suggests choosing carefully. And on such a day, you need to create wonderful memories. Hearing this, the main character thought that at first she had no idea about dancing at all. But the little turtles told her everything, so that now she could not disappoint them. Lasayana explains that first everyone dances in one line, and after the group dance, she will need to choose a boy with whom she wants to dance. And if she doesn't know something, she can simply repeat after them. The princess thought that she had not studied dancing, but she thought she could do it. And then she started dancing. Suddenly, a boy with black hair stepped on her foot, but she calms him down and says that everything is fine since she is also a bad dancer. Lasayana invites the princess to dance with her, and she agrees. And at this time, the countess warns the girl to beware of the blonde boy with her as he continues to look at her. However, the girl doesn't understand why and asks if it's bad that he's watching. The countess explains that it is Bane and his henchmen who push and beat weak children. Hearing this, the main character thought that Bane was a relative of this scoundrel. And it turns out that the girl invited her to dance to announce this, and she doesn't understand why the lady with green hair is so cute. The main character asks the countess if she asked her to dance, because if she didn't, it could have hurt her. And then she smiled. Lasayan says that a girl should not laugh so openly and needs to be more serious. And then she says that these guys choose children like her, who are not used to such events, and mock them. The princess bends the girl, and then asks if she's okay. The surprised countess says that everything is fine with her. And then she goes away and asks her mom if she danced well. Nice for. Looking around, I realized that all the children came with their parents. Suddenly, a lady comes up to her and asks what family she is from. They ask her to tell her name. Hearing this, the main character thought that they had guessed that she was the dragon princess. And at that time, I thought that it was time for her to reveal that she was a princess, and then intimidate the guys who offended Lasayana. At this time, the prince approaches her and says that he was looking for her, and then they went sailing on a boat. Carrot's nephew hit Lasayana, and he asks if she wants him to call him and scold him. However, the lady objects and says that we need to find a moment to shame him. The prince reports that he does not want this and says that just the thought that she will talk to him makes him want to kill him. Nicephorus thought that he had such thoughts because she had not seen him for a long time, and Zion seemed unstable. And then she tells the prince that no one asked him to say such things. The young master says that he has not seen her for a long time, and therefore could not restrain himself, and then apologizes. The girl explains that the boy was wrong, but not so wrong as to kill him. After all, he is still a child, and he just needs to be taught a lesson. The prince says that his little lady is right as always, and she asks why he is not happy again. And then he explains that they haven't seen each other for so long, and that's all he tells her. And at that time, she thought that since he was the same, she would be drawn to him. Nicephor invites the prince to tell him why he was angry and did not see her, and then explain that she cannot figure it out on her own. Zion says he was wrong, and the girl invites him not to do that again, and because she was worried. And every day she thought about whether to go to him or not, and she didn't know what she should do.